Hi, sir. Srivastava sir, how are you?
Fine, sir. How about you, sir?
We have Mr. Lakshmi Varahan also with us today. And Amarnath ji is going to join us.
Mr. Razdan.
Good morning, sir. How are you, Rajiv?
Good. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
So, should we start?
Is Mr. Amarnath joining us?
Sir, Mr. Amarnath, till the morning he was confirmed, but something again has come up. So he said that if in between till 12 o'clock he gets free, he will join.
Certainly.
Otherwise, I think he has asked us to excuse him, as it happens every time.
Certainly, certainly. Well, it's my. Has Mr. Lakshmi Varahan joined?
Lakshmi Varahan will join shortly. Just connect with him.
Because he's he's the first speaker unless we change the order.
What will happen is since has to leave urgently, I think he has another meeting at ministry. So he will speak first and then we will follow the sequence.
Okay. Lot of noise coming. Lot of noise is.
I think if everybody can go on mute, then we'll be able to manage it. May I request everybody to please go on mute, including the host.
Okay.
So, Mr. Razdan, you will have to please unmute. Mr. Razdan, please unmute.
Yeah. Mr. Razdan is already, yeah. So since it's almost 11 o'clock now.
Yeah, I think we'll start off.
I think, so we can start the session. I would like to welcome everybody, all the participants and our esteemed panelists to this interesting session on digitization for Indian oil and gas industry and how we are navigating through the COVID crisis. So I would request Mr. Anil Razdan, who's also the chairman of the ICC National Committee on Energy and is a former Secretary of Power, Government of India. Request Mr. Razdan to kindly deliver his welcome address and commence the session, please.
Thank you very much, Soma. Very good morning to all friends here. I can see old colleagues, Mr. R.K. Srivastava and Mr. Tiwari there, and hopefully Mr. Lakshmi Varahan may join us very soon, and we should have probably Mr. Amarnath, also the Joint Secretary from the Ministry, and my co-host, Mr. Rajiv Singh, the Secretary General of the Chamber. It's my pleasure to welcome all the captains of the oil and gas industry to this very significant meet. I would say that having chosen the oil and gas sector as a theme for digitalization and for navigating through the COVID-19 crisis, I think the oil and gas sector is the appropriate sector to show the way. Well, right from exploration, where it all starts, where oil and gas is extracted, the oil and gas sector is one of the first to have, I think, almost digitalized the entire operation of exploration and production. And the advantage has been that the oil and gas industry has been led by some of the largest and the most modernized companies in the world. And essentially, since it's a sector which deals with global trade, it has exposed itself to the winds of modernization and futuristic technologies, be it in exploration, where you have 3D technologies as well as other techniques, and then coming down to transportation. Well, other than shipping transport, where of course you are transporting gas and oil supplies through tankers, wherever this operation operates through pipelines, and in India also we have a very good network of oil pipelines as well as gas pipelines. They give you a virtual situation sitting on the spot of whatever is happening anywhere across the country, across these pipelines. So this transportation, where the bulk, and I would say in city gas distribution, where you have everything moving through pipelines and again through digitalized support, we have a very good example of how command and control structures can give you on-the-spot assessment of what exactly is going on. Similarly, in accounting systems, again, down the line, to a very large extent, I think even at the retailing, we have almost been the pioneers, I think, in the oil and gas sector of digitalizing our accounts. In fact, the power sector, where I spent quite a few years, so my association with the oil sector was brief, but I would always tell them that in project implementation, again, it is the oil and gas sector which has shown the way. When the Jamnagar refinery came up, which was one of the largest projects of its kind in the world, it was virtually controlled through a digitalized process. And that is how so many different parameters could be coordinated, and the whole project came up in record time. In fact, after moving from a special secretary oil and moving on to from petroleum ministry to the power ministry, back to the power ministry, I had arranged a talk on project implementation through these techniques to the power sector. And I think it did help them in improving their project implementation to a very large extent. Now, again, a refinery. The whole refinery is virtually operated through a small hub, which is located in a large sized chamber. And that is what is controlling the entire operations. My first fascinating brush with this kind of a thing was when I was in the Department of Atomic Energy. And there again, everything is digitalized and controlled because you're handling so many complex operations at the same time that it is impossible to control these operations unless you have digitalized everything and the command and control apparatus is available to you at the click of a button. So I think the ICC has done well in organizing this event, and the captains of the oil and gas sector are here today, both from the public and the private sector. And I'm sure that the messages that they will carry will also and can be adopted across other sectors of the economy so that we navigate through these tough times when human movement, human contact is to be avoided to the extent possible. I think with these words, I will now request Mr. Tiwari, who is the Director of Finance with GAIL, to kindly give his presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Respected Rajdan Sahab, Srivastav ji, and Amarnath ji joining, Rajiv Singh ji, and the team, Indian Chamber of Commerce. Really, I am overwhelmed by the various initiatives taken by the Indian Chamber of Commerce at different stages, and I had been actively participating in their programs. So I'm thankful to ICC as well as the whole panelists here, including Rajdan Sahab, and the participants who are there. I wanted to be quite a long time since I have to move to the ministry just now. I would be brief, but I would like to share my thoughts on digitization. See, during these few months, I'm going receiving so many topics for discussion on digitization due to COVID-19, including here also. So I was just thinking why the COVID-19 has given this crisis. Why not the digitization should be one of the initiative which should be self-driven and with the objective to serve to the stakeholders. I would just give a brief of the GAIL India's initiative, which is very consistent. In GAIL, what we have done, we have adopted the mission. Unless you give mission, digitization is not possible. So we have given the mission of digital yatra, just like it a Dandi yatra or Satyagraha yatra. So everybody in the company joining through this yatra, and we have given this mission. Then in order to understand more, we have given mission to the people that digitization for work-life balance. So we have given, if you are digitization, if you are working at different places through digital mode, work-life balance will be there. And then we have given the mission to the digitization for sustainability. So these missions has given a lot impetus in the company and in the area of our project, in the area of operation maintenance, in the area of employee, in the area of our payment to the contractors and suppliers. A tremendous work has been done in GAIL. Just to give example, for contractors payment, last year we have implemented e-measurement and e-system. This is one of the mode. That means if the contractor is working at Kanyakumari, he has not to submit his bill physically. He will click on there and it will move to EIC, to the finance, and the payment will be released. So traveling time, which was there for around 35 days, has been reduced to around 5 to 7 days. This has given a lot of satisfaction to the vendors as well as contractor suppliers. Now, I will share here that during this crisis moment of this COVID-19, liquidity was one of the important aspects. So we have been able to manage the liquidity crisis of the contractors and suppliers. This is one of the important steps there. Earlier, for the employees, I'm just talking about the medical and TA bills, which was used to come physically. There is no need of submitting these bills. So we have been able to give satisfaction to the employees. I'm just giving example. These are the few initiatives which has been taken. In GAIL, we are implementing around more than 5,000 kilometers of the pipeline. Now, every pipeline 200 kilometers, we have to keep a camp there. We have implemented and we have done digitally that we can monitor, instead of going physically to the site, we can monitor the status of our progress of the pipeline sitting at the midpoint of the camp, and we can see 50 to 70 kilometers here and there, and it will be efficient also. So project monitoring, operation and maintenance monitoring, employee satisfaction, and so many things. In the CGD also, so many initiatives have been taken. What I mean to say that for the stakeholders management and for the shareholders and others, digitization is an important aspect. Though COVID-19 has given a very good steps to think about the digitization process, but it should be continuous. It should be a cultural, digital culture has to be implemented in the organization, then we can do. And 3 or 4 aspects I would like to share, that the digital ownership is required. Every employee, every of the company has to digital ownership they have to maintain for stakeholders management, as well as digital integration is also one of the important thing. It should not be that one department is doing one digitization in a silo and others are not doing. So it has to be digitally integrated. And one more thing, that digitization for the management of the stress, tension, if these philosophies we are giving in the organization to do it, I think we can have the digital yatra or digital initiative in a wonderful way. So for the oil and gas sector are concerned, GAIL, including the other colleagues of the oil and gas sector, IOCL, BPCL, we are interacting with them, and we are finding that there are many initiatives has been taken in the oil and gas sector. And I think during this COVID-19 situation, many initiatives has been taken. So I hope the further discussion with the panelists which will be there will be fruitful. And I request all the participants to actively participate. This is for us, and this is for the self and to serve. We can be self-driven as well as we can have our own working better, as well we can serve through digitization. So with these words, thank you very much. And really, I'm feeling sorry, Razdan Saab and all that I have to move just now. People are coming just to give a clip. So I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm not able to participate fully, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving the platform. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Srivastava sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was nice hearing from you. So as we continue the session, may I request Mr. Anand Lakshmivaran to present his session, please.
Good morning. Suma, can you please confirm you can hear me okay?
Yes, Mr. Anand, we can hear you.
Okay. Just give me 30 seconds here. I'm trying to share a presentation and I'll get started. Can you please confirm you can see my screen okay?
Yes, your screen has come.
Thank you. Very good morning, everyone. At the outset, I'd like to thank the Indian Chamber of Commerce and happy to be present here, and it's a pleasure. Also great to be presenting in front of many of the dignitaries here. I know Mr. Razdan talked about how the oil and gas industry has led digitization and digitalization in terms of basic control of the plant and automation of the plant. And of course, Mr. Tiwari talked about how we've all adapted ourselves during the time of the pandemic. I thought before I delve into details of digital technologies being deployed in oil and gas, I'll quickly give you a glimpse of how Vedanta and Kane Oil and Gas as a company has changed and adapted itself during the times of the pandemic. We of course use a number of collaboration tools, but many of you today are familiar with Zoom and Microsoft Teams. What we have really seen is once the pandemic set in and the lockdown and all that started, and when people started working from home remotely, it was very important that they get the right platform for collaboration, virtual collaboration within our teams, as well as collaboration with external partners, customers, and other stakeholders. And we've really seen a surge in the number of transactions that are happening in the collaboration tools. And I present some statistics of the number of meetings, the number of participants that were happening through both Microsoft Teams and Zoom here. And the point to note is maybe just 2 to 3 weeks before the pandemic, while these tools were always present in the organization, it wasn't being used as much. So at times, when we are forced into situations like this, where we need to securely work from home, I think digital adoption and usage of these tools start to surge. Another interesting area is sort of work, you see the chat bot by name Shreya that we had employed. we actually created a chatbot for employees to ask any questions and also fix some of the IT issues, because it was a change management for people when they started working from home, because we are in an industry where we are all used to going to work all the time and working from the office. But when people started facing issues and we had limited bandwidth within the IT team, we said, is there a way we can provide some tools to the employees where they can either self-service themselves in terms of IT issues or have a chatbot respond to very commonly faced issues. So that was again something that we brought in during the pandemic and was very useful. Now, from a COVID response perspective, of course, our chairman has been very keen that, from a country perspective, we help out, the group comes forward and helping individuals of different types. Of course, again, here, right from the chairman to the executive management, they believe that through digital and technology, we can do things for the country and for the community around us. So this was a couple of areas where we applied digital during the pandemic in terms of making sure that we create the right relief fund, and where we have not only our own employees, but the external stakeholders and partners coming and contributing. And very specifically, I think there were two focus areas in terms of meals for all and meals for stray animals. Just wanted to sort of make the point that yes, we've been embedding digital and technology to even further efforts here. Now, sort of coming back to the industry and how we see digitalization, helping the organization, I would classify them into 6 broad themes that you see here. One, of course, in terms of exploration and new field development, we are saying how do we reduce cycle time in terms of getting to oil faster. These could be by applying cloud technologies, what we are calling as integrated geo cloud, which can help process seismic data faster. And then there are a lot of cloud-based innovation that is happening in terms of interpreting data in an automated fashion, which will augment our geoscientists to be able to understand the data, subsurface data faster, and then be able to get to oil faster. So that's really one big theme that we are going after as an organization. And I see that a lot of the industry peers here in the country and globally are also trying to align on this. In terms of reservoir management, I think this is again an interesting area, because for decades we have had tools like reservoir simulation tools and our static modeling tools, but there are again a variety of global and Indian organizations, startups, niche technology companies that are coming forward and saying that how can we combine data-driven techniques as well as the traditional physics-based models to understand the reservoir performance better and be able to improve recovery, arrest decline, and then produce optimally. So again, an area that Kane is very focused on in terms of making sure that we are able to improve recovery and get higher production. Third, in terms of subsurface and surface operations, of course, the biggest important things for an organization like us is our assets, both in terms of course, people and the equipment and assets that we've got. So on the surface, subsurface operation focus, it's really about how do we integrate planning, tracking, and scheduling for different departments within the organization to be able to collaborate and effectively take decisions. Linked to that is asset integrity and reliability, where we are trying to apply predictive analytics, where we can foresee whether an equipment is going to fail ahead of time, so that we can arrange for spares, we can arrange for maintenance and repairs, and then reduce downtime of equipment. So fundamentally, both these together is a very significant focus. Health, safety, environment, and quality. I mean, needless to say, in our industry, it's a social license to operate. I think I would say if there is one single focus of the larger group and the organization. This is around sustainability, health, safety, environment, and quality. We've been also consciously looking to deploy technology-led innovation in this area. Some of them listed here, of course, intelligent permit to work, looking at smart wearables in terms of how we could help a remote worker monitor, vital parameters of the person and then be able to support in case of an emergency. And then, of course, compliance-related aspects in terms of saying, can we use video analytics to look at PPE compliance or other safety-related compliance and alert a central team if there is no compliance and then be able to help address it. So there are a number of innovations that are happening here that we're trying to deploy in the health, safety, environment, and quality area. And finally, of course, Mr. Tiwari talked about it in terms of the corporate function portfolio, whether it is on the procurement side or on the selling side. We are looking to see how processes can be automated, digitalized. Of course, we moved to S4 HANA, SAP's latest technology in terms of managing our corporate function portfolio. And then now we're trying to see how we can build AI and machine learning use cases on top of it to be able to get more predictive in our decision making and also automate processes. Really a quick glance of some of the 2019 accomplishments, and I thought I'll use this to talk through how we have deployed machine learning, how we have deployed artificial intelligence or cloud. Just to give people a sense of the different types of things. I don't think I'll have time to go through all of them, but if I can pick one or two examples. Exception-based surveillance artificial lift system. So we've got all forms of artificial lift within Kane. We've got ESPs, jet pumps, PCPs, and various other forms of artificial lift. Now, one fundamental thing that we did was a very simple, intelligent rule engine that we deployed that will monitor key operating parameters of these equipments and then be able to alert subject matter expert if there was an issue. And when that happens, then the subject matter expert is able to communicate with the control room and operations team to be able to control the processes to prevent a trip or a downtime of an equipment. So now this was deployed in about 2-3 weeks time, very progressively for every equipment that is out there. And then we are deriving a lot of benefit. So in some ways, think of it as intelligence on top of our existing automation systems that are out there to be able to control processes better and control downtime of equipment and make sure that there is no production deferment because of that. The frac screen out prediction, in our hydraulic fracturing job, this is again an interesting area that we work. Embark on a frac job, how do we ensure that we don't reach an anomalous situation within the job, right? And we had operating parameters of the previous frac jobs and also some information about the subsurface in terms of well logs. So we said, how do we combine both this data to be able to predict before the person starts a frac job? Is there a potential of an anomalous situation occurring? And then if there is, then give the engineer the right operating parameters to use to be able to prevent the anomalous situation. So this is again something that we have tried on our RDG asset. Other initiatives, I think in terms of the digital oil field, there were some assets of ours that were not connected. The OT to IT integration that the industry talks about, while our Rajasthan asset was always connected. The offshore assets, we took the opportunity to connect them so that the corporate teams can actually monitor the performance of the wells and then be able to take decisions on top of it. Office cloud, I talked about it a little bit in the beginning. I think this has been a game changer in terms of how the employees collaborate between them, whether it is about creating a document or whether it is about storing information. not only within the company, but also exchange of information with either third parties like oil field services companies, EPCs, any other external stakeholder. Because collaboration has become easier with Office 365 Cloud, the time to decisions on projects, large capital projects, have certainly improved and increased. So we've been sort of been able to get the benefit of collaboration with something like Office 365 Cloud. Touch briefly about 5-10 minutes on some focus this year, and I did sort of allude to some of this during my discussion, but let me take the ones that I have not sort of spoken about. Around asset integrity and reliability, so this is something that we are doing this year on our surface equipment. We've identified critical surface equipment within the Mangala processing terminal and the gas terminal. And then we're saying how to combine first principle based models, fault models, and artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to predict failure of equipment. And then, of course, based on the prediction, be able to maintain them and reduce downtime. So this is an area we are collaborating with an automation company, and this platform has pre-built fault models. And then we will now, based on the past prediction, rather the past failure of these equipment, we'll be able to build a predictive model that can help prediction of potential failures, and then we can take action. So there are, of course, once the prediction is made, there are downstream workflows that the engineers will perform to make sure that either we prevent failure of the equipment or at least reduce downtime so that we can bring the equipment back online really quickly. So that's the whole idea. We've just embarked on this in July, and by October beginning, I think we will be live with some of the tools and techniques. And that's the other point that I want today. I think many of these platforms are deployable with agility. So any organization who wants to embark on something like this, previously it used to be multi-year programs before we can actually see some of these programs see light of the day. But I think today, most organizations follow an agile approach in terms of progressively building the solution. So this is an example of how you can apply AI ML into the core processes within an oil and gas industry. Advanced process control for ESPs, APCs, and again, I heard Brandon talk about in the beginning in terms of how automated control has evolved in the oil and gas industry. APC, I think at least in the upstream side, and particularly on the artificial lift side, has been applied globally. But if I look at how much, the maturity is still upcoming. So we sort of took the opportunity to pilot on a couple of our wells, applying advanced process control. For people who are not very familiar with the topic, it is like saying that when a pilot is actually flying an aeroplane, you could either use an autopilot mode in terms of having everything controlled in an automated fashion, versus the person flying it himself or herself. Now APC is really similar. A control room operator could disengage advanced process control and control the plant themselves, or if you put it in the APC mode, all the operating parameters of the process are monitored, and then accordingly the set points to the process will be given, so that the controller and the optimization algorithm that is there within the controller is able to control the process well and within the operating envelope. And what is the business benefit of this? On the 2 wells that we piloted APC, and now we are of course in the process of expanding it to about 70 of our ESP wells, is that we saw a 5 to 10% increase in the liquid and oil rates when the controller was able to control the process in a very consistent manner. It also means that you will have lesser downtime of equipment because you're operating the equipment within the right operating envelope. So that's the other benefit. Now we are sort of obviously expanding it to a number of other equipments. One last scenario, and I will sort of stop here, is digital project management. Of course, in the last few months, the capital investments and all are being re-reviewed, but in pre-COVID times when we had a number of capital projects running, it was very important for us to go through in a very integrated fashion where we are with our major capital projects, apply analytics in terms of saying, are there conflicts between different contractors who are working on similar landscape? We also looked at we've actually developed a tool which has a 3D model of the plant and to sort of see interface issues between multiple contractors who are working. Again, the whole idea is, can we bring data and analytics to key project stakeholders for them to be able to take decisions and then make sure that they adhere to schedule and either get to oil faster, or it could be certain repair of equipment or building a new facility, etc. We adhere to schedule and get things done on time. So that was the whole idea. I do believe that this is again an area that will continue to evolve, and we will apply a lot more technologies to and bring in a lot more data-driven decisions and analytics to the space. So this is what I wanted to do here, really give a quick glimpse of technologies that are being applied and some current focus this year. Thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure to be here and sharing some of my experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anand, for a very informative presentation. While moving on, I would request Mr. R.K. Srivastava, who is the Director Exploration of ONGC Limited, to kindly address us.
Yeah, good morning to all.
Please unmute.
Just trying to share my presentation.
Sir, make it full screen, sir.
Yeah, I'm this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you are now visible. This presentation is visible and I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning once again to all. Dr. Razan, former Secretary, Ministry of Power and Chairman, ICC National Energy Committee. My fellow speakers, panelists, and all the participants. Really, it is my proud privilege to be part of this e-summit on oil and gas. And I also express my gratitude to providing me this platform to express or share my thoughts on this topic. And this topic about navigating the COVID crisis through digitalization. And I would thank Mr. Varahan for making a very detailed presentation and sharing the sequences which are basically emerging, are going to be adopted or being adopted by different companies in different spheres of their operation in E&P industry, as well as Mr. Tiwari also shared some of the processes. So in this regard, just let me begin with my presentation. So now we have what we have seen during past few months. That is basically a testimony to the grand design of unpredictability. And unpredictability is also a little bit part of E&P industry as far as the exploration as such is concerned. Coupled with that, the tumbling oil prices, coupled with threat of COVID, entire global economy taken for a tailspin along with the Indian economy, issues emerging out in maintaining the business, in controlling the cost, in putting the people on the right place. And then what it demanded was, it demanded a sort of resilience in planning, addressing the uncertain future which was there. And this also gave a wake-up call for improving and modifying our systems and processes to address all these emerging issues. So the basic pandemic issues which it posed to the industry was, on one front, protecting the environment, protecting the employees, partners, customers, adhering to all the SOPs and related to quarantines, confinements, restriction on movement, minimized workforce deployable, and then maintaining at the same time the business continuities. Along with that, you had also to take care of the reduction in cost so that your profits are not affected. In this regard, what ONGC had been doing, what the ONGC has done, this is to, it effected with the help of government, the biggest crew change operation from its offshore installations as well as process platforms, more than 3,000 persons. And in that regard, our officers have performed their duties much beyond their call-off duty for more than 60 days at a stretch in remote locations. And then they were taken out with the help of government through measures taken which took care of their safety, and that process was implemented. And this helped ONGC to maintain the production to the near normal levels without affecting that. Apart from that, on the digital front, taking care of the employees' health, the processes were designed. And then in that regard, what ONGC did was to take their health feedback on a regular basis, created an infrastructure wherein anybody affected was in touch with a concerned person, and then his health and other issues were taken care of apart from his family issues. At national level, this MOPNG with this draft digital roadmap in collaboration with all the stakeholder and IT companies is already in process. Handling this COVID-19 pandemic in a unprecedented way, at an unprecedented scale, ONGC was also given a prestigious international award, Silver Stevie Award for Great Employer as the most valuable employer in Asia Pacific for responding to the COVID-19 challenges. Apart from standing by its own employees, it has also carried out several initiatives as a part of its social corporate responsibility in handling the pandemic. Now, coming to this, I already covered protecting the employees, partners, and issues, protecting the business. Now, coming to what the future is holding, what the future challenges are emerging, and in this thing, Mr. Rajdan has also mentioned, Mr. Vahan has also mentioned the importance of oil and gas industry towards the economy cannot be understated. In Indian context, with a share of 15% to GDP, this plays an important role. And with the projected 4% growth in demand till at least 2040, wherein hydrocarbon sector is going to be in the forefront, is there. In this context, the digitalization opportunity which are emerging, some of them which I have already talked, towards reducing the cost, making the decision in a rapid mode, mitigating the risk, working remotely. Another important aspect that is going to emerge would be caring for cyber security. The more digitalized, more automated processes are inbuilt, more they get prone to this concern of cybersecurity. Identifying and optimizing the value streams, alternate business models to be developed, supply chain transparency and reconciliation, which Mr. Tiwari has also mentioned. ONGC is already implemented. Apart from e-tendering, it has now been moving to faceless TCs, and all bills and other things which Mr. Tiwari has mentioned has already been implemented in ONGC. In terms of managing performance-based contracts, tracking land rights, some of the things which Mr. Varahan mentioned regarding remotely monitoring those vehicles for deployment. In fact, ONGC had been on this process for quite some time, at least not less than 5 to 10 years, wherein all its fleet were fitted with all monitorable GPS systems and other tracking devices. Coming to this digitalization aspect, now what that digitalization is inbuilt of, having the 4 elements, obviously data, driven by technology, and this data and technology, this gives a new ways of working, and then new business models are taken out, which are implemented and which reduces the cost, increase your efficiency of the decisions and processes. Some of the things which Mr. Razdan initially mentioned, oil and gas field, E&P businesses, E&P sector, traditionally had been on the digital forefront. Be it a process of acquisition, processing, or interpretation, these things were there. Digital oil field, this was basically there for the last decade itself, wherein we have been able to connect remote oil and gas operation to the centers where those processes were monitored. Now, what the digitalization is new, what new is coming out in digitalization. So the new things which are there is focus on Internet of Things, robotics, machine learning, data analytics, and these are the few new things which are being talked about, which are being implemented at industry level, which are being implemented at company organization level. So now what it has led to? The thing what it has led to is it has accelerated the process of digitalization across, and implementation, fast track, it has to be done. It is a demand rather than choice. Now, how this things digitalization has been thought of, how it should enable in the processes or the efficiency drivers which we are talking about is through, it has to be place agnostic. That means you have to provide a workforce wherein you can reduce the placing of workforce in terms of commuting, in terms of other thing, and that probably may have a long-term benefit in terms of environment and other issues. So cloud infrastructure is emerging as a new thing. This private or personal cloud, that choice would be depending upon the company's choice. However, there is no denial that the people as well as the ONGC is moving on private clouds, wherein all those seismic interpretation and processing, all these things can be carried out sitting at home through thin clients and the cloud. So virtual office and paperless office, ONGC has already implemented paperless office for quite some time. It is moving ahead in that regard. So we have already talked, because demand is there, remote access you have to provide. You can work easily from home. You can work with skeletal staff. And this in a long range may prove to be environmentally friendly and energy efficient. And this would be a viable option in avoiding mass gatherings in office and giving work from home facility to other things. Now, key enablers, as we said, now this would be device independent, location agnostic, advanced data analytics platform, best means to remain operational, and it would be an enabler for agility and innovation. Obviously, it is designed to reduce the workflow cycle time, and as I said, private and public cloud, this would be another aspect where the companies will have to decide and make their own choices. The different platforms which have enabled right from conducting this e-summit, which the all the organizations have been taking care during this COVID crisis is using these digital tools to interact, to communicate, to run the office in a least disrupted manners. And some of the platforms have already been discussed with Mr. Farhan, which has been implemented. Now, moving on to this digital twin, Mr. Farhan has also mentioned, and people are moving, companies are moving towards this creating digital twin. This will enable the person to have a virtual recreation of any element or a project, whether it is the full infrastructure or a small element. This would be an accurate replica in a real time, where you can real time monitor the process, you can analyze the process, and you can analyze the operational data, which would allow the operators to easily spot improvements or efficiencies in their processes. Some of the things I have already mentioned: IoT, robotics, and big data analytics, this machine learning, as well as these were there in interpretation for quite some time in industry, wherein the neural network, trained or untrained, were already being deployed for getting the maximum value in terms of interpretation from the reservoir data. This digital twin I mentioned, which will allow real-time testing analysis, spot efficiencies in processes, predictive control and analysis. It would help in maximizing the results. It would also suggest operational adaptations, which Mr. Farhan has also mentioned, in line with changing legislative and market requirements. This would IoT and robotics I have just discussed, so I will just pass through some of aspects like preventive maintenance, making important decisions, statistical models, utility has already been emphasized, and these would be inherent processes to the digitalization processes, which would be imbibed by different companies or organizations in E&P industry. Supply chain transparency, land records. In that regard, this creation of national broadband mission, this would be demand. Another thing would be high-speed communication infrastructure through nationwide fiber optics. This would be a demand where this would help in moving on in a fast-paced manner, bringing in all the digital initiatives in with the fold of the company. Availability of nationwide communication infrastructure, I mentioned. And in this regard, this National Digital Communication Policy of India, digital initiative like India Stack, empowering government, business, startups, cyber security, I had already mentioned, this is going to be a major challenge in terms of that. So location agnostic opening infrastructure to outside world. Once you provide work from home, this is going to be an issue. Crisis causing increase in malware, extremely critical to protect the data and businesses from cyber threats. Essential compliances processes should also be working, and special measures are to be taken and implemented to secure all the infrastructures, processes, and projects. In terms of ONGC initiatives, integrated shared services for people, functions, and resources are already being taken care of. ONGC has also embarked upon its strategy initiative 2040, which we call, wherein ONGC is in the process of creating digital center of excellence, vigilant and employee-friendly, adhering to all SOPs issued by government. Feedbacks we have been taking. ONGC has already been awarded. This I already touched. In conclusion, there is no denial that industries can immensely benefit from a clear digitalization roadmap. Digitalization is intended to serve companies in their key areas. It is designed to eliminate operational silos. This would require elimination of operational silos and identify areas for value creation. And this is nothing but it's about moving towards a world where the digital and the physical identities are to merge to provide information that is real-time, relevant, and actionable in order to improve decision-making processes. In the end, I will quote from Mr. Jeff Bezos, "There is no alternative to digital transformation. Visionary companies will carve out new strategic options for themselves. Those that don't adapt will fail." Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Srivastav and Mr. Lakshmi Brahan. Tiwari has left us. I just had 2 points to raise with you, gentlemen. Rajiv, just allow me questions, because
Please.
you see, digitalization has become a boom. In fact, during this COVID crisis. And in fact, I would say that digitalization should be adopted to improve efficiency. I think L&T is one company which has virtually through the digital mode trying to get the work, performance and output of every employee of its in the field, particularly in construction areas. So you see, when you are dealing with a whole gamut of operations in a country which is vast amount of construction works going, I think this is one area. If we can connect every employee's output connected to know what is his output, that is a very useful tool in my view. I would like you people to react to it. The other point I want you to react to is that you see in India we have unemployment is a huge issue. Now, if we go wholesale for digitization, I mean, forget the COVID times. In other times, we have to try and see how we can maximize employment with efficiency and find a balance. Because there are some production operational areas where I think digitization has shown that how you can get the maximum out of an owl, how you can get maximum out of operations, the speed of your accounts, finances, etc., etc. There is no substitute to that. But what would be your reaction to this, that we have also to keep employment in mind? One end, we are talking of digitalization. The other end, you have the vast majority of the country. You see people in the countryside who've gone back to the villages. They are depending on schemes like Manrega for survival. So we've got to find in our own solution a happy mix. And you people being captains of modern industry, I would like to just share your views. Srivastavji and Anand, would you like to react?
If I can sort of, I think very apt, Mr. Razdan, both the points extremely important. If I can talk a little bit about, jobs and automation, absolutely, this is a topic that comes up in any forum like this. This is a question that sort of comes up. If I look back at our own organization, and if I look at skills right from people in the field to people in the corporate office and executive management, I think all of us have had to go through some form of continuous learning to be able to be relevant for today's organization, today's industry, today's technology that is changing things for us, right? I'll take a very simple example. My father, he's in the mid 70s and he teaches management, and in the last 6 months, I think he has learned more collaboration tools than I have, because he's had to teach virtually in multiple management colleges. So I think all of us are going through a personal learning curve. So I think in our organization, the way we have looked at it is, when we bring in digitalization and automation, it is not to eliminate or rationalize the work front, but it is more to see how we can repurpose people for growth. That's one thought process, in terms of saying that individuals have to really repurpose themselves, reskill to be able to be relevant for the digital era. So that's one way of, I think, thinking about it. The other one, I think, when we look at the larger country, the other aspect that we have looked at is embracing a lot of small niche innovation that are brought in by entrepreneurs, startups in the country. And I think that's another way of engaging a larger community around us. Again, people have to be, those entrepreneurs, those innovators have to really come forward, and those need to be engaged by large organizations and groups like us, which will again probably create employment, because those entrepreneurs, when they are successful, they create employment for the country, etc. So I believe that's the other plus on the digitalization innovation side in terms of how we could improve employment. But I know it's probably not the perfect answer, Mr. Razdan, but I agree it's an area that we need to continue to focus on and see how we can improve things there.
Srivastav,
I agree with Anand. Skilling, skill upgradation, and adaptability to the new solutions which are emerging is going to be the key thing, number one. ONGC has already embarked upon this and created number of skill development centers, number one. Number two, since it's COVID or no COVID, as you said, there is definitely going to be a sort of transition, and it will be going to be an energy mix, integrated energy mix in the future. So in terms of that, there would be a number of other opportunities which are emerging and which can be taken up in a smaller scale, which he said as a MSME or a small. In that regard, ONGC had already been working some of the startups it has promoted. And in certain areas, be it conversion, biofuel, be it manufacturing of ethanol from biomass and other things, that ONGC is already working on with number of partners, number one. Number two, in other aspects like tackling our HPHT solutions, which completion fluids are there. So in that regard, certain energy means certain IITs from where these chemical engineering students, and they are being taken into the fold and have been given project in working out the solution with IDT and other institutes. Similarly, in terms of remote sensing, similarly in terms of field validation of the remote sensing, the college graduates, structural modeling group, all these are domains which are available, which can take care of even in the sphere of a thorough or let me say near complete digitalization processes. So opportunities will keep on emerging at different scales, at different places. So skill upgradation and skill making the people to embrace that change and adapt to that change. And we should be, as a company, we should be facilitator in providing those change facilities.
Thank you very much. I think you made the point that we have got to study the entire value chain, and then in the areas in which we are operating to try and find gainful, efficient deployment to increase productivity. That I think has to be our goal. Thank you very much. Rajiv, please take over.
Mr. Razdan, thank you. I must say it has been a great learning personally for me also. And I'm sure the participants have benefited a lot from the rich insights which have been shared, starting with Mr. Razdan, then Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Anand Lakshmi Varahan, and of course, Mr. Srivastava. I think COVID definitely has been the worst news which the world has got, and everybody is suffering. But I think somehow it has also brought in a very huge change in terms of adopting the digital way of working. And I think it has given a big push, not only to the industry, but also to the PSUs, common man, entire banking system. And I think most of these changes will stay because industry and everybody has experienced and seen merit in working on digital platforms. I'm sure the insights which have been shared today all the participants from oil and gas industry would find them very, very useful. And I personally see application of most of the learning experiences which have been shared today across all industry sectors. And especially for the medium and small companies who always struggle with resources, I think this can also help them in a big way. So on behalf of ICC, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers, experts for sharing their rich knowledge. And I would also like to thank Gail for being the partner for the event. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you to all the participants in the inaugural session. Razdan sir, Mr. Srivastava, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Lakshmi Varan, thank you very much for joining us. So we will close the inaugural session now and move on to the technical session. All our participants are here and all the speakers for the next technical session have also joined. So the technical session will be on, sorry?
Yeah, let's start. Let's move on to the next session.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the technical session, which is on digitization in the...
May I be excused? I will be...
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. So we'll just move on to the next session, which will be digitization in the upstream and downstream oil and gas sector. Moderator and session chairman is Mr. Deepak Mahurkar. He is the partner in PwC. And other speakers have also joined: Mr. Pradeep Nakela, Mr. Nubil Ansari, Mr. Prasanna Telapanni, Mr. Saji Zacharias, and Dr. Shailendra Pokhrial. So I would now hand over the session to Mr. Mahurkar to kindly lead the session, please.
Thank you. Very good afternoon. Am I audible?
You're audible. You're
Yes,
audible.
please. Yeah.
You're audible.
Thank you, Mr. Rajdan. It's my immense pleasure and privilege to be on the panel amongst esteemed panelists, audience, as also the experts that spoke in the inaugural session. Mr. Rajdan, you started this particular event on very high note with all speakers in the inaugural session giving their points of views in the manner digitalization is impacting in general the world and also the oil and gas industry in specific. So the session that I will moderate is expected to be pretty technical in that sense, and we have experts from OEMs of various solutions, as also some people from consulting and those from the industry. As was just now announced, we have Mr. Praveen Nakela. He's the head of pre-sales in Hexagon Ppm, and he's going to speak to us on the digital transformation of the projects and operations that his company manages to offer in various of its clients. We also have Nabil Ansari, my friend and co-worker in the industry, who is a director of industries and digital team in SAP India. He will elucidate us on various scenarios in the digitalization of the upstream industry in general, followed by Mr. Prasanna Kumar Telapanni, the manager of digital solutions in Indian subcontinent in Schlumberger. And then thereafter, we'll also hear a view about implementation of digital solutions in the industry from Shaji Zacharias. By listening to him, we'll get a view of digitalization technology in the downstream sector. And thereafter, the academician, Dr. Shailendra Pokhrial from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, who will talk about the academics and the students' view about oil and gas sector's digitalization that's taking place. And before I hand over to our first speaker, Praveen, I would like to give some of my experiences which have been witnessed in the consulting industry in the last about 10 years' time, which in my opinion has been stellar. In the oil and gas industry, the challenges have completely changed. Our industry is being viewed as an industry which is causing the carbon world become intensified. Our industry is being viewed as the one which is not only in for a transformation in itself, but also is being viewed at one which is making way for energy transformation. Our industry is also being looked at as the one which was by a large distance ahead of rest of the industries in digitalization, and therefore one which will guide the future transformation as also transformation in the energy forms. And the last is our industry is also being viewed at as the one which will continue to solve the problems of the economies in general, and continue to be providing security of energy to the economies. So I would say we have an uphill task. People are looking at to find solutions. People are looking at embracing technology much, much higher than that we had done before. And also is expecting us to give away one day carbon intensive fuels and lead this world towards energy transformation. In the wake of all this, the digitalization that has had immense effect in the last 1 year is of various kinds. We heard in the inaugural session, and lest I repeat that, in especially the hydrocarbon industry, if there has been any distance between a company or a corporation or an oil field or a refinery or a petrochemical complex, which maintain that distance from technology inclusion or embracing digitalization, they suddenly realize that without that, it wouldn't happen. I have personally witnessed as a consultant so many companies initiating just understanding the landscape of digital solutions that are available to the industry. Also, those who are in the higher levels of maturity, those companies in oil and gas sector have invigorated and looked at finding any innovative solutions that are possible by virtue of which the whole of the business can be modified, and especially those who touch the markets. And in addition to that, to bring in efficiency in operations, bring in energy efficiency within the complexes, they have adopted technology in a significant manner. I would say the distance is far too long to be bridged. There are companies who are attempting newer solutions, whereas some companies are a little away from even embracing that technology. Now, I would request our panelists today to kindly give their view on their expertise from their companies, but also in the passing, try and give a view on, is the digital divide in the industry growing? Are those who are digitally fit only going to survive and find the way? Or would the lock-in into the hydrocarbon industry stay on because we are so efficient and we are so well digitalized that our efficiency is hard to be matched by new entrants in the newer energy sources? And therefore, we are actually enlarging or lengthening the longevity of hydrocarbons in this carbon constrained world. With that, I request Mr. Praveen Nakela to provide his views on digital transformation in project and operations.
Good morning and good afternoon, respected gentlemen and the panelists. So before that, some ground rules. Can you hear me?
Yes, very much, Praveen.
Thank you. And let me share my screen. And please let me know if you can see the screen.
Sure. Yes, the screen is visible, except that you might like to do a full screen. Perfect. You're all set.
Yeah. All set. Thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, and Indian Chamber of Commerce personnel team for providing us the opportunity to present on our, one of the digitalization topic, that is digitally transforming projects and operations. So I am Praveen Kumar Nakela, and I represent Hexagon Ppm, and I am heading pre-sales division for India. And I have been with Hexagon for more than 11 years. Prior to that, I worked with Larsen & Toubro and Hexagon. Now, I'll explain you about Hexagon at a glance. So hope you people might have heard about Intergraph. That is a company which is present, there is more than a 50-year-old company, and Intergraph was taken over by Hexagon in 2010. So Hexagon is primarily a technology solutions provider, and it is established leader in information technologies. Okay, and if you see, we are mostly R&D focused, and 10 to 12% of our net sales are invested in R&D. We have more than 4,000 employees in R&D itself, and around 4,000 patents we have it on our name. So we are present in more than 60 countries with more than 20,000 employees. We are strong in financial as well, around 4 billion euros in sales with 25% operating margin. So what are the different divisions of Hexagon? I'll explain you. There are, if you can see, there are 8 tiles. The first tile being agriculture. Yes, that is of value interest because which is we deal with day in, day out. So the agriculture division does provide digital solutions for the crop forecast, crop yield. Based on this crop forecast, the banks, insurance companies, they decide the amount of loan that need to be given and all. So we do have geospatial agriculture is one of our main leading division. Geospatial division is mainly it mainly deals with GIS. And one interesting fact I would say that all of you might have heard about Operation Vijay Target, right, in 1999. For to locate enemy bunkers and bombard with the laser guided bombs, it was Hexagon technology that was used. So we were not supposed to inform this or tell it publicly, but now after 2015, yes, we have that privilege to declare it public. And most of the technologies to locate with the GPS and everything was used. Our technology was used by the defense. Geosystems. Now you might be hearing of Brownfield Digitalization of the assets. Yes, that is the scanning of the entire asset and convert it into a 3D model. We have a division called Leica, which is #1 in the world. We do have with one of the who do provide one of the world's latest and technological advanced scanners. Manufacturing intelligence. We do manufacture advanced CMMs, lathes, which can give up to microns precision. Mining, we do have a mining division as well, wherein you can do the geological study. You can manage the fleet management. You can manage what is the tonnage per hour and everything about the yield and everything. Positioning intelligence just complement with the geospatial as well. PPM, that is the division that we represent. PPM initially it stood for Power, Process and Marine. So all the Fortune 500 owner operators or EPCs, you talk about oil and gas, chemical, mining, power, fertilizer, they are our customers. And safety and infrastructure. Safety and infrastructure is one of our prime divisions. If you might have heard about 911 in US, that is on our technology. It's more than 40 years old. And the UP Dial 100, that is the police one, that is also built on our technology. So this is a brief, about the 8 divisions of Hexagon. And what does Hexagon do is, Hexagon's main important features, that is we develop the sensors. And as you have seen in the earlier slide that we have around 4,000 patents, most of the patents are across the sensors. You talk about anything, you talk about space, stations, you talk about rockets, you talk about autonomous vehicles, everything that the sensors are being used are of Hexagons. So we do have sensors, we do have softwares. Sensors capture the as-built data and software actions or plug in the data. So we fuse these sensors and software and fuse the real world with the digital world, and that is our core. So Hexagon Ppm, yes, Hexagon Ppm, that is the division that we represent. And Hexagon Ppm has been awarded rank #1 for 13 consecutive years across 5 different categories advised by ARC Advisory Group. We are also present in more than 60 countries and we have more than 3,000 employees. And 19% of our revenue is also invested in R&D. We do have around 40 to 50 registered patents on our name. And if you can see, the revenue is equally distributed across the region. That will be in the globe. If you see Americas, EMEAs, or APAC, the revenue is almost uniformly distributed across the region. Now, what do we offer as an Hexagon Ppm? We do offer smart solutions for the entire project life cycle. Well, let's talk about the Greenfield project. The Greenfield project does start, that is the CAPEX one. So whatever we do offer is front-end design. We do have solutions from the field to the detailed design. That is our P&IDs, instrumentation, electrical, and smart 3D models. And for the construction procurement, we do have a solution. We call it a smart materials. Yes, most of the organizations across the globe, they use SAP for procurement. We don't compete with SAP, but we complement with SAP. So what we do is, whatever the part data or commodity data, whatever you define during this design stage, we bring in that data into our material, that is smart materials, and we map with the ident codes with the SAP. So we don't compete with SAP, but we complement with SAP to make the design parameters right from the engineering phase to, enable them for the issuance of purchase order or work order. We do have solutions for fabrication, that is our isogen and belt quality management system as well. And construction, we do have solution, we call it a smart construction. Nowadays, you're talking about a 4D visualization, right? So now you have a 3D model and you bring in the schedule, that becomes a 4-dimensional. And you bring the cost parameter, that becomes the 5-dimensional. So we do have solution because we do have engineering design 3D solution, and we do have smart construction wherein you can see visually the actual construction progress with pertaining to your planned and actual dates. And we do have solutions for operations as well. I mean, so we operations like your change management workflows, creation of the digital twin, and also the connectors which talk to your in-house already established solutions. So in a whole, we perfectly offer a solution for a perfect digital twin. Let it be for the greenfield or let it be for the brownfield solutions. And now coming to sorry, it got stuck. So these are all the solutions. I know this is an eye test for the users, but we offer more than 45 to 50 solutions across each project lifecycle or each phase of the project lifecycle. So all the oil and gas, chemical, mining, power, fertilizers, pharma, they use our solutions. We are into building and infrastructure as well. We are into AEC market. And if you see at the right-hand bottom side, the Ecosys. Ecosys is our enterprise project platform, which is one of the robust solutions for the cost control and also the project management tool. Now, we do have, as I explained, that most of the Fortune 500 organizations are customers. So most of the global EPC customers like Technip, Bechtel, Jacobs, all these are our customers. Also owner-operators. You talk about Impex, Shell, ExxonMobil, Petronas, Chevron, BASF, into chemicals. All these are also our customers. And coming to Indian customer, yes, Reliance, you might have heard about J3, the world's largest refinery, that was built on our design tools. Numaligarh Refinery Limited, based in the eastern part of India, that is Assam, they are our customers. ONGC onshore, yes, they are our customers. Indian Oil Corporation, and most important, EIL as well. And coming to the EPC sectors, Larsen & Toubro, Tata Projects, Valli Parsons, Thyssen, all name anything, all these are customers who use one or the other tools of our solutions. Now, what is Hexagon? Definition of digital twin. See, so it is, what is a digital twin? Digital twin is the cornerstone of the cornerstone for the digital transformation. What exactly is a digital twin? Digital twin represents the virtual. It actually is a virtual representation of a physical facility. So it can bring real-time data, it can bring process simulation data, it can bring geospatial data, and all the data that actually is real-time, or even if it is in a siloed way, we can interface and bring in the data to see seek the right information at the right time. So digital twin, if you see from Hexagon Digital Twin, on the right-hand side, we support the greenfield, and from the left-hand side, we do support the brownfield as well. So coming to the greenfield condition, if you see the field and detail design, yes, as I explained, right from the field, front-end design and detail design, then project management, construction, completions, that is commission, procurement, construction, and doing all this right from the field data, that is the design data, we make use of procurement, the same data we make use of the construction, and the same data we make use of the commissioning to build the facility or asset. And during the operation, once the handover is done, the same data can be leveraged for the operation as well. That is O&M, operations and maintenance, inspections, turnarounds, decommissionings, and whatever other operational parameters that are required. So in a whole, this digital twin can be converted into a pure operational twin by interfacing or adapting or connecting this with their in-house solutions like CMMS, RCMs, or LIMS, and any other software that you use for O&M. Now, our digital twin, as you see, we are supporting from every phase, that is field, detail design, projects and collaboration, procurements, fabrication, construction, completion, and operation. So we do support both greenfield digitalization and brownfield digitalization as well. So what we say is they are fraternal twins. I mean, they share only some genes, but not all the same genes. Now, Hexagon Digital Twin, as I mentioned that sensors are one of our major strong area. We use sensors, softwares, and different technologies across Hexagon, to make it a perfect digital twin. So for operations and maintenance, it's not mandatory that they should be knowing the data, all the right data at all times. The most important fact is that they should know the right things at the right time. So by connecting these silos or different solutions, the user or the operator or maintenance personnel, they can fetch the right data or the right information at the right time with a single click. That is the solution, that is the digital twin. Now, we do have scanners, that is the Leica, as I mentioned, which is mainly used for brownfield digitalization. See, we do have different models that are the patented one, and the latest is BLK247. It monitors entire the 3D environments and builds, if you see the 3D digital fences around specific areas for permit to works and everything, yes, based on AI technology, we do offer solutions based on the customer use cases, how to create these fences, or what are the actually how the user shouldn't be going, or what are the safe areas for the user to go and operate. Now, Hexagon Digital Solution do offer these 9 tails agnostic. Yes, it utilizes and exchange data with other formats. It is interoperable. It's not that we bring only a Hexagon format of data. You execute your engineering with any application, any OEM application, we are capable of bringing that data into our solution. Data-centric user experience is heightened from data-driven navigation. It gives you 360-degree views. Right from the 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, you can get entire 360-degree view. And capture and consolidate, if you're not 100% digital, no problem. See, most of the refineries in India or most of the assets that are in India are not into digitalization because they are very old, 1960s or 70s. And mostly they have paper drawings, okay? So they are mostly into the paper drawing. So what happened is they realized as a first step of digitalization, most of the organization, what they did is they scanned the paper drawings and kept it in a hard drive or a computer drive. Yes, that is part of digitalization, but that is only initial part of digitalization. So what now from this scan, they need to relate the documents as well. Suppose there is a P&ID drawing, electrical drawing, instrumentation drawing. What they have done is they've scanned all these paper drawings and they kept at a certain location. But linking this exact or P&ID, instrumentation, electrical and 3D is the next step for the digitalization for them and to make it a perfect digitalization. So I'll explain you that aspect as well in the operational field. Now reporting, yes, our digital twin has got a basic and advanced reporting feature with Microsoft, and we have a tie-up with Microsoft Business Intelligence, and you can get all the visual intelligence report with the dashboarding as well. And as built, now suppose the facility doesn't have much of the data, yes, you can scan the as-built data and bring it a point cloud, or you can convert that into a 3D model. You can correlate that 3D model with the respective P&IDs, electrical, and you can make it as a perfect as-built digital twin, and you can manage seamlessly for your operations and maintenance. Automated processes, our digital twin has got robust workflow engine wherein users can create their submittals, transmittals and everything, and review approvals, markup, everything can be done. Mobility, we do support mobile enterprise as well. So users can go into the site with your, go on field with their mobiles or tablets, and you can access the link and connect to the database server and access the right data at right. So this is the audible traceability, and this is one of our InfoMap. And AspenTech, as most of you are aware of AspenTech, yes, we are partners with AspenTech. AspenTech solutions are basically used right from the conceptual design, that is basic engineering. And so we partner with them to make complement solutions right from the conceptual design to operations. So this is the one of the example, like they make the simulation concept, we make the detailed design, and this data design is used by Aspen data historians as well, and we bring in that data historian parameters into our digital twin. So what do we achieve by doing so? We achieve higher operational performance, we can make better decisions, reduce cost and effort, and improve reliability by doing so. Now, what are the components and characteristics of Hexagon Digital Twin? With digital twins, you get, if a proper digital twin in capital project, you get increased speed to market, reduced project development cost. And the most important thing is this digital twin drives new level of transparency and openness. better collaboration between the OPCs and owner operator, and you get the ready to use platform with all the inbuilt rules out of the box available. Now, what is our digital twin? Our digital twin is, we call it as Hexagon SDX. Okay, sorry. On the right hand side, if you see, this is SDX projects. That is mainly for the greenfield project. That is your capex. Suppose now taking the example of HPCL Rajasthan refinery, that is a new one, new greenfield project where there will be 30 to 40 contractors working collaboratively. Yes, you can, HPCL can host this, and 30 to 40 contractors can push in their data right from the day one into this system. They can work collaboratively. There are security rules wherein, like EPC1 can't see the data of EPC2 and vice versa. So this is one of the projects, web-based platform wherein all the EP contractors can work collaboratively. And the review cycle for oil and gas is like 30, 60, 90%. Generally, what would happen is the contractors would take their data at 30% and 60%, 90% for review with the owners. So you don't need to wait for that. Right from the day one, owners can see the data and review and comment and mark up within this application. That is mainly for the XDX projects. That is for greenfield. Operations, we call it as SDX operations, wherein you can make your brownfield digitalization. You can create your 3D models. You can create intelligent P&IDs, instrumentation, or your PDFs, Word documents, and correlate and make it as a perfect digital twin. As I mentioned, XDS project is a project collaboration. Like multiple contractors can work collaboratively. Okay, it has got an inbuilt document management system with proper submittal and workflows. So suppose EPC1 is delivering a P&ID drawing for owner's review. So when it delivers, it pushes to owner hosted SDX, automatically an email notification would go to respective discipline engineer of owner, and owner can view the P&ID at his location. Okay, at his office, he can view and mark up the drawing on the content. Not only one, multiple markups can be done, multiple reviewers can do the review of the document and again send back to the same originator, that is EPC1. So similarly, this is the collaborative platform wherein all the multiple contractors can exchange information, and over the period they build a perfect digital. This is an info map. Once the data is published, and this is the correlation. When you select a tag, you can get the P&ID, you can get the 3D model. If you don't have the 3D model, you have the laser scan, you can get everything. And you have intuitive search capabilities, document management facilities, all the access and role-based securities can be configured. And reporting, as I mentioned, this we have got visual intelligence and Power BI reportings. Now, this is the review mechanism where one reviewer submits a drawing and the other reviewer can mark up, and everything is workflow driven and with proper email notifications. And our brownfield digitalization, sorry, I'm rushing up because I got a message that the time is up. For brownfield digitalization, yes, brownfield data, most of the data are in paper format, as I mentioned. Either you can give us a PDF or Word or Excel, we load it in the data and we correlate, suppose, and bring in the 3D model as well, that is scanned one. Suppose when you click on a tag, you get the relevant 3D model, you get the relevant P&ID, you can get the relevant purchase order, material requisition, spare part. So you click a tag, you get all the information pertaining to that. So that is, digital twin with respect to operations. So these are the file type formats that we load into operations, like PDFs, drawing readers, if you see. So PDFs, drawing readers, words, and even if you have a design in a third-party application, it doesn't matter, we can bring it. Once that is established, we do have connectors, certified connectors out of the box with SAP PM, wherein you can exchange data bidirectionally from this. So capturing the digital twin, yes, and this is an example. As I mentioned, you can, with your tab, you can connect to the server and check the inconsistencies right over here within the tab on field. So you can connect to the server and you can see the tag completeness report within your tab or mobile connecting from the on field. So this is one of the scanning, as I mentioned. So with this scanning, you can bring in the 3D model and correlate with your P&ID. This is some examples of the artificial intelligence, wherein you bring a paper drawing or something and we can extract some information and convert that into intelligent P&ID. Yes, this is in the roadmap. We are successfully executing with minimal data. That is, you bring your P&ID document and we are bringing that into smart P&ID. Similarly, with respect to scans. So this is the topology, integrating P&ID and the scan. Now, regarding IT landscape, now every refinery or asset or any asset pertaining to any industry, they have, a huge landscape, IT landscape, different solutions for control systems, data historians, ERP, CMMS, and all. So what we do have is we have connectors to connect all these solutions and in-house. So the user don't need to see the data silo-wise. He can connect because we establish the connection and he can see all the data pertaining to that within a single platform. And that is our digital twin. We call it as SDX. It's a zero footprint web client. You can access from any part of the location in the world. And you can see the data or your database, whatever it is happening with that. So owner operator challenges, yes. What is if they don't have proper digital platform? The design modifications would be a challenge. Plant extensions would be a challenge. Detailing, debottling activities would be a challenge. So if you're up to date, there would be a lot of control work, reliability, predictive maintenance, inspection management, and everything would be controlled right from the schedule and the cost as well. So this is a summary. I mean, if you see our partners, yes, we are partnered with AspenTech, OCSoft, IBM, SAP, because we bring in their data, we have adapters to connect to those systems. Right from the design and to operation, we have all the data we bring in and make it a perfect digital twin and an operational. So these are our differentiators. Yes, we have O&M solutions for all maturity level and phases. We have a zero footprint visualization, that is from web client. You can connect from any point of world. Management of change. We have inbuilt management of change workflows with the engineering data. We do support concurrent engineering. We do support interoperability. We bring in third-party data as well. And by doing so, we do have a streamlined handover process. So that ends my presentation. Any question and answers, please? Any questions?
Thank you, Praveen. We'll take the questions after all the panelists finish their presentations.
Yeah, sure.
Your perspective is very, very useful. In our own Indian hydrocarbon sector, we have refineries, petrochemical plants who couldn't keep to time and cost during project construction and commissioning. And even after a decade, they are still not break even.
Absolutely, yes.
We can imagine the impact that it has if you miss a bus during construction and commissioning. Thank you very much for bringing this solution up, presenting the technicalities around it. Most of the professionals in our industry know that such technology solutions are becoming available, but we didn't know it's a shout away. Just give a call to Praveen, it's there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Praveen.
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah.
Let me invite Nabil now. Nabil from SAP, who will talk to us about scenarios for digitalization in the upstream sector now.
Thank you, Deepak. Let me know once my screen is visible.
Yes, you're there.
Okay, thank you so much, Deepak, and a very good afternoon to everyone. It's a privilege and pleasure to be part of this conference and talk about what digital can do in the area of operation maintenance and safety, especially when it comes to upstream sector. So I am from SAP, as Deepak has mentioned, and I look after the industries and digital team in SAP, which basically is trying to build more capabilities as more and more organizations or clients of ours are moving into the digital side. So most of you know SAP as a vendor which has automated the backend, but in the last 5 to 7 years, we have also augmented capabilities, especially in those areas where you need to get the information from the backend, whether it is maintenance, safety, or even operations. So in the presentation today, I'll talk about a couple of things, basically some scenarios which we have worked with our clients, and that will help us understand which are the ways, or at least which are the low-hanging areas when it comes to these functions, and what digital can do in terms of improving capabilities. I think I just wanted to start with one high-level slide to put few things in perspective. The first thing is, whenever we talk about digital, I think a couple of things become very important. The foremost thing is the data. I think it's important to know that most of the digital interventions will rely heavily on the data, whether it is about, let's say, prediction that we want to do, whether it is about an IoT-based scenario. I think each of the cases, data becomes a very crucial aspect. So the first thing that I think as an organization or as a practitioner that one needs to focus is on the data side. The second element is, I think upstream oil and gas has largely been very well automated. We always had instrumentation on the fields, But still, as we move into the digital era where more and more capabilities would be needed to get more and more data, automation would have to be augmented. So there is always going to be focus on the automation, whether in the form of sensors or in the form of the normal instrumentations that we do in the fields. And the third thing is when you combine this data and automation, what becomes more paramount is about intelligence. And that's where you can even have machine learning applications or artificial intelligence working in tandem to get us insights. And the output could be different. I think output could be you want to give a different experience to a customer in a customer facing industry. It could be new revenue model. It could be cost. So there could be multiple outcomes. But the big idea that I wanted to highlight is that data becomes a core concept. And as a result, it is important. And you'll be surprised to know that, while everybody understands that data is so important, but very few organizations actually have the capability to manage and analyze the data. And the automation piece, which is more and more instrumentation or use of sensors. And finally, a layer on top of this, which is from artificial intelligence or machine learning. So let me just get into a few scenarios and help understand that which are the areas where companies are investing when it comes to operation, maintenance, and safety. So the first thing we have seen significantly getting focused in most of the upstream companies is basically building a data platform for all the information that resides across different operational data sources. If you look at any upstream company today or an operator today, they will have significant number of places where data will be stored. It will be data which is captured at the time of exploration, during development, the continuous data that comes from the well, the reservoir data. There are too much data which is available with most of the companies, and in silo they are actually working on it. It's not that companies are not working or doing any activity, but in silos they are working on these activities and delivering some of the insight. But the idea that we are seeing emerging in most of the upstream operators is to start looking at a homogenized way of integrating this data, which does not mean that I will bring this data and dump it into one place, but I will try to integrate and make sure that I will be able to get the data from all the different sources, whether it is operational source of something like well data, or is it even data that I have gathered as part of exploration. But the idea is that this particular underpinning of data as a concept needs to be brought in, and that's the reason the first thing that we have seen many companies, and this is an example from one of the clients, that actually they started to look at data platform where they can integrate and get the data from various different systems. And the moment you have the data available from various different systems, then you can start to build various applications on top of it. Whether it is an application for a field engineer, it is an application for somebody who is, let's say, monitoring the chemical injection. A lot of different applications can be built there. But the fundamental thing is that a data platform needs to be created. And this is one such initiative that we are seeing significantly taking shape in most of the organizations in some form or shape. And I expect that in the next 1 or 2 years, most of the companies will be in a position, at least in the upstream sector, where they will at least have access to the data, and they will be able to use this data for arriving at some unified way of delivering some insights. So that's the first scenario that I wanted to highlight. Another thing that we are seeing taking a lot of shape is remote operation capability. So many of the fields are accessible not so easily, and you always have people who have to go in the field and carry out the activities. So most of the companies are also investing significantly in creating some kind of a remote operation center. Now we can combine this with the thought of digital oil field also, but the idea over here is that at least in those fields which are remote and the fields where the accessibility is limited, companies have started to invest into building some kind of a remote operation center. This is again one client that we worked in US, where they were actually looking at as a centralized cockpit for bringing all kinds of operational data. And again, if you look at it, this is also alluding towards the data piece, which is I am able to at a central place monitor everything that's happening in my field, and that visibility that I bring at one place will help me improve the efficiencies, whether in terms of the performance of the well, whether in terms of the effort that people have to get this information. But the idea again here is that one single place or a remote operation center, which basically starts to become a key pillar for carrying out many of the digital initiatives. So the first two examples that I highlighted, the first one was on data piece, building a data platform, and the second one on the remote operation center. They're quite similar in the sense that underlying thought process is that various different ways in which currently operations are managed. These different ways are combining, getting collaborated and integrated to bring a view to the organization. The third thing, which is in the maintenance area, and I think this is something which is talked about, because this is one area where we have seen some values being delivered. And I would say this is one area where early adoption has happened in the industry also. So which is all about identifying a set of equipment, whether it is surface equipment first to start with, and then start to look at predictive maintenance as a capability. Now, this particular area, I think, is something we have well discussed many times. But idea here again is that the fundamental principle here is also that how do you ensure that the current information that you are capturing in your DCS or PLC systems, and then you are further augmenting this with more automation through sensors. These two things can be combined, and then you start to look at that augmentation layer. So if you recollect the three things that I talked about in the earlier slide was about automation, data, and augmentation. So this is a perfect example where we add more automation on the fields. So existing data, which is coming from the different SCADA and PLC and DCS systems, then we build more automation through sensors, which are able to capture more data at a granular level. So it could be, condition of the equipment, it could be the status, it could be, any other parameters which are relevant for the purpose of knowing the health. And then on top of that, building some kind of a prediction models. And these prediction models, there are two ways in which organizations can do it. One, obviously, a machine learning based approach. And secondly, there are also first principle based approach, which are more devoted towards physics based modeling. But the ones which has taken up more, I would say, the way it has worked more effectively is machine learning based models, because that's at least easier to build rather than going to a first principle model. But again, the fundamental challenge that we have seen in these areas is that when we start to get into building a model for an equipment to assess whether the equipment will fail and when it will fail, and try to look at some algorithms, again, the challenge comes that whether we have all the data and whether we have the quality of the data. So the data principle is actually, I would say, a very, very foundational element in any of the digital interventions. And it is becoming extremely important that, before even embarking on on initiatives like this, companies should ensure that they are able to get the data in an integrated manner and also look at their quality. And this one scenario about prediction is something which is again heavily residing on the data as a very foundational element. I think we all understand prediction very well, but again, few elements in prediction which becomes important is a cloud where you store the data, some machine learning algorithm. Those are all different elements which will come into picture. But the idea is that this could be a way in which companies can start to look at some critical assets. I think we have seen more focus on the artificial lift equipment, whether it is a progressive ECP pumps or it is ESP. Those are the key areas that companies are focusing on when it comes to upstream operators. But over a period of time, once the success is achieved in those areas, further move to other equipment also. So this is one of the major areas of focus, and many of our clients working with us, and in some cases also working with other partners, is focusing on this particular area of predictive maintenance for critical assets. In the area of safety, I think one of the focus that has been around was on the employee who are working on the fields, whether the employee who is working on a platform or the employee who is working in a remote field. How do you ensure the safety and well-being of the employee, because the employee is susceptible to many dangers, including the gases or including any other issues that can happen. So a wearable based tracking is also one area which is picking up big time in the safety domain. And this is something which I believe is very easy to do. There is only one challenge, that how do you ensure that the devices that we are using are to be certified. But beyond that, I think it becomes one of the immediate lever which can bring at least a lot of focus back into the safety, because this is one area which is industry is big time focusing on. And there are now devices available through which you can monitor multiple things for a worker. And I think if you have a connected worker where you can monitor the heart rate or the pulse or body temperature and also monitor the concentration of gases like carbon monoxide or hydrogen sulfide, this not only improves the overall safety, but it also then delivers and makes that worker far more productive. So this is again, a use case or a scenario that is very relevant in safety. And one of the things that many operators, I think, in some form or shape outside India, I've seen a significant number of companies focusing on this area. So it could be one sensor or one variable which is capturing multiple things, or it could be multiple variables which are capturing the various parameters. But at the end of the day, making sure that in the real time, we are able to monitor the location condition of the worker. And this also helps in unforeseen circumstances of any disaster, where you will be able to know that which workers are available at what location. And the good thing is that you can always link it back to system of incident management and recording. So whenever there is any issue, you can actually go and do a root cause analysis, what caused that health hazard or issue, and then try to improve the overall safety. So this is again one area, and it borders on the IoT piece, because now we are looking at connecting a worker through some devices. And this again has a significant value in terms of the improving the overall safety of the installation. So these are, I think there are many such cases which are available. I just wanted to evoke some thoughts by bringing few of the cases that we have seen work very well with our clients and where we see investments going from our client side. But nonetheless, I think there are absolutely, no dearth of cases. But again, the big question remains that as companies start to work on individual scenarios and digital interventions, they will have to ensure that the basic foundation, whether it in terms of data, automation, and the right tools for machine learning and AI are put in place. So some of these fundamentals have to be looked into. But if these fundamentals are in place, then there could be multiple number of digital use cases which can be taken up. And this also brings to the last slide where I wanted to touch upon that what typically is the best approach when it comes to driving a long-term digital intervention program. So one is definitely, these use cases should not be looked into isolation. For the purpose of presentation, I picked up few use cases, but the idea is that if the success has to be delivered, program has to be defined. That program could be on one function. That program could be at the level of operator or company also. And the idea is also to identify which are the business levers that we are going to impact. It could be safety in case of, let's say, connected worker. It could be cost reduction when it comes to, let's say, predictive maintenance, or it could be, let's say, improving production when it comes to remote operations and data platform for all the data, operational and production data. So those levers are also important to identify. I think increasingly, if you look at most of these scenarios, we are going into the domain of function a lot. So as a technology company, if I look at SAP, we were a technology company focusing more on the technology side. But when you look at now digital use cases, they are not technology-led use cases. They are actually business-centric problems that we are solving through the use of technology as a lever. As a result, in order to make it successful for any organization, I think partnership with the business is also very important. In fact, what we are seeing that there is always this pairing that can be done. You can have one person from the technology or digital team paired with the relevant people from the functional team, and the two in together can actually deliver the right level of inputs needed for these use cases. And again, the moment a program is defined, there could be multiple work groups in that program. So one work group only focusing on, let's say, area of safety, one work group focusing on operations, one focusing on, let's say, production or maintenance. So these kind of work groups also make it easier to deliver the insights or deliver the end outcomes. And I think it's going to be iterative approach that we have seen. So two elements are very important from that iterative approach. One is collaboration with a larger ecosystem. So if you look at in the previous presentation also, we were seeing that even for a digital twin, so many different data sets have to be brought in, and number of companies have to provide that openness so that their data comes and create a digital twin. Same thing holds true for many of these initiatives. You need to have a collaborative approach where one vendor and the operator cannot deliver this. It could be multiple vendors, and I think some of the digital use cases may also require multiple operators, because the moment you get into the more and more prediction-centric use cases, you will need more data. And more data can come if you have more operators also collaborating. So collaboration is definitely one of the key approaches. And lastly, I think today we are going through a phase in this industry where cost is paramount. So everything that has to be invested, there has to be a justification. So what we have also seen is that having a business case for any use case, it could be a business case for delivering a higher revenue, low cost, or it could be a business case in terms of improving the overall safety of the platform also could be looked at. So I think these are some of the ways we believe use cases can be delivered and the digital program can be made successful. So I just wanted to cover these few things just to give an idea that how what we have seen as an organization working well with clients and how some of these things can be of benefit for the other organizations who are looking for digital. So Deepak, that's all I wanted to cover in my presentation.
Thank you so very much. Absolutely perfect in time. You also very effectively conveyed to the audience that there are successes of digitalization, that SAP, which was known for technology, ERPs, does provide solutions in the operations technology area, and that these programs have been adopted by companies world over. I thought I'll also add to your last slide a few additional things. One and the foremost is that two companies at two different levels of maturity of technology adoption need not necessarily have the same targets of embracing technology. You'll see a lot of peer cases in the market. You will see a lot of operations technology offerings being made. It's not necessary for companies to aim for the highest. Depending upon the maturity level and the need of the organization and the operating model, the companies can choose amongst the various options available, including within the suite of the same OEM probably. The second is no two companies are same. So we have seen so many of upstream, downstream companies looking at technology solutions, and in the end, for meeting their objectives, the solutions, the architecture, and by itself, the emphasis on digitalization in some areas of the business vary completely. So I think our audience today are doing a good job of observing what all companies have done, and I'm sure they'll go back and think about what out of this is to be adopted. Thank you so very much, Naveed. Very impressive. Let me now move to Prasanna from Schlumberger, who will talk about the solutions in the Indian subcontinent that have happened by upstream companies' digitalization. Prasanna.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Deepak. Am I audible?
You're audible. Your slides are visible. Both.
Awesome. So, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce, Indian Chamber of Commerce, to give us an opportunity to present our company's vision of the digital technology. And I would really like to thank Deepak for giving us this opportunity. Yeah, so let me start off by giving a brief introduction of myself and what my talk is going to be. So my name is Prasanna Talapaneni. I am a BDM at Schlumberger for the digital engagements. And my talk today is going to focus mostly on the digital technology, what it had promised, what it is, where we are at now, and what is the future of it. Yeah. And I'm going to focus specifically on the digital offerings of our company and how it relates to the upstream E&P business. So to start with, digitization in the E&P lifecycle is across the entire life cycle of an upstream E&P organization, right? So if we are talking about exploration, about development, production, abandonment, across the entire life cycle of an E&P organization, digital is equally applicable. Yeah, and the potential savings that can generate is in the tunes of billions of dollars per year across the whole organization. But if you look at the the state of digitalization today in oil and gas, we are at a state where we are still far away from the major organizations that do digitization in a big way. The oil and gas industry adoption of digital is still lacking, and there's a long way for us to go. But even within the digitization adoption that we have done, uh, we have got quite a good success. Yeah. Now, whenever one talks about digitization, there are three V's that always go with it, right? Volume, variety, and velocity. Now, in the recent past, I mean, in the very recent past, there has been an explosion of data. We are today looking at zettabytes of data rather than petabytes, and this is only going to improve with time. And there is definitely a need for having a digital transformation and a digital policy for any E&P operator. So that was the promise of digitalization, and let's see what has actually happened so far. So across the upstream E&P organization, you have exploration, well construction, development, production, operations coming in, and this is the result of a survey done for across many organizations by our company. And what we have found is that the savings that can be got from digitization is equally across all segments of an E&P life cycle. And it's the value of this digitization comes in already we are producing 30,000 barrels more than what we were doing in 2017 because of digitization initiatives. And there's almost about 150 million barrels of oil that was discovered in Gulf of Mexico because of digitization initiatives that were taken by various operators. So digitization is real. The value that it brings in can be quantified today, and it is the way future for us. Yeah. That is the message I wanted to pass across with these slides. So if you look at our organization, Schlumberger, we are a relatively old organization. We started out in 1920, and the first log that was done in India was done in 1933, and we have always been the forefronter of technology and innovation in E&P industry. One of our segments was the first company to build a silicon-based integrated circuit, which we later spun off into a different company altogether. But we have a long and proud history of innovation in E&P organizations in E&P industry, and digitization is also one sphere in which we have invested quite a lot of money, about $1 billion a year. In R&D to be digitally to be the forefront in digital innovations. Yeah. So when one talks about digitization, one talks about these main aspects: AI, ML, data analytics, automation, security, cloud-based, and Internet of Things. So we have 23 research centers across the world, and two of the main centers in which I'm showing here are the Stick and Spick. We call them Stick and Spick in California and in Boston, where we drive the digital initiatives across the whole E&P sector. Yeah. And if anyone feels that one organization can do digital all by themselves, then they are definitely wrong. I mean, digitization today has taken is democratized, and we have partnered with a lot of companies, be it Google, Microsoft, and also academic institutes like MIT, Stanford, to to produce good and viable digital solutions. And these digital solutions align with the industry goals of superior return on investment, exploration efficiency, production increase. And to do that, there has to be a link between what a digital technology can bring in and what the industry needs. And this is essentially the domain knowledge that we have captured over a century of working in the oil and gas industry, right? So with this, I want to showcase our technology. It is called as Delphi. It is very similar to the Temple of Delphi, wherein there was even in the Bible it says about never-ending gas flame, which is probably a gas seepage at the Temple of Delphi. And so that is one of the first recorded instances of oil and gas in the world. And so our Delphi cognitive ENP environment is a perfect marriage of what digitalization is happening across various industries, what the goal of a ENP company, and finally the domain knowledge that we bring in. Our focus is not only on the planning aspects of things, but also on the operations aspects of things. So this has to be a marriage between planning and operations, and the planning and operations together are two pillars in which we are proposing and implementing our digital strategy. Yeah? Now, I'll take some time here to explain our Delphi in some more details. So this line here represents the ENP life cycle, starting from a discovery to a FID to abandonment, and we have, using our digital technologies, have identified areas in which digital can help, and we have brought in individual components called as explore plan, FD plan, drill plan, prod ops, and corporate plan to have a feel and potential savings of digitization in across the complete ENP life cycle. Yeah. So I'll focus on prod ops for the sake of presentation here, and I'm going to show what is our philosophy in building a digital solution, and how it can help in having savings. So prod ops is a unified production advisory system, right? So what we mean by that is that if ENP company wants to improve production, it cannot be done at the planning or operation stages alone. There has to be buy-in and seamless communication between all the stakeholders, be it the asset manager to all the way down to a field operator. And a unified production advisory system is the way to go in it. And we are leveraging the technologies of SMS, email, alerts, and all the communication channels that exist in a traditional ENP environment, and bringing it all together to build a advisory system based on digitization. Yeah. And the way it is done is very simple. We take data from whichever sources that you have. So if you have sensors on the wells which can give data real time, or if you have traditional ways of doing it, like putting it in an Excel file and posting it on a common server. We ingest all kinds of data into a layer called as a data ecosystem. And this data ecosystem then tags the data, tags all the necessary filters, puts all the data QC processes in place, and then generates and then forwards it to the production workflow system, also called as an orchestration layer. And in this orchestration layer is where we develop all our workflows. And in all of these workflows are given or generated or programmed by our years of experience in operating in ENP environments. And the main focus that we have is on production overview, well operations, well portfolio optimization, network modeling, essentially anything that is production related and can generate production value out of increasing production. Yeah. And we generate insights automatically based on the data and the domain knowledge that we have for each of the various kinds of wells that we have in the industry. Uh, for example, gas lift wells, ESP and PCP performance wells, wax and hydrate wells, wax and hydrates in wells and in networks. And these insights are generated automatically based on the models and the data ingestion that has taken place earlier. Similarly, we also have a well portfolio optimization, which takes the insights generated from the data and automatically calibrates based on economics to tell you which well is the prime candidate for any intervention that is required, and what is the expected cost of the intervention and what is the benefit that you are going to get out of it, both in terms of dollars and in terms of barrels of oil that you can recover. And these are developed fully cognitively and are completely data driven. So this is a workflow that can next be extended into a network of wells, so that network doesn't become a bottleneck for any production related operations. And we have generated this, again, as I said earlier, using decades of production engineering practices, be it decline curve analysis, heterogeneity index of looking at pressures versus flow rates, channel analysis for water cut optimization, and bubble plots, and various other ways in which data can be represented and insights can be generated out of it. So that was an example of how one of our solution is generated. Now, the key message that I wanted to tell you is we have solutions that we have generated using our domain knowledge and collaboration with various academic and industry players. And these are a marriage of both technology and domain knowledge. And the final idea that I want to show you is that often overlooked and often a trepidation for any ENP operator is the data security. Yeah. Our solution, we have invested a lot of money in getting our solution secure, and it is SOC2 certified, and it works on the pillars of tenant isolation, identity management, security monitoring, and having regular cybersecurity drills. So this is a solution that has been implemented in quite almost 100 plus fields across the world, and still growing. And there are quite a few examples in the press on the successes that we have, and I'm not going to go into any details in any of them. But you can look them up later on if you require. But I would like to conclude this talk here briefly, mentioning the following things, right? So the first thing is that Schlumberger has been around, has a long history of digital innovation. We have been doing this for almost a century now, and we have partnered with both academic and industry leaders in generating the best digital solutions, and our solutions are there across the entire E&P life cycle. And in conclusion, I want to say that this is a proven technology, and it will benefit the industry going forward. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Prasanna. Very impactful presentation. Obviously, I have a few questions. If time permits in the end, I'll come back to you, and I'm sure our audience would have some questions for you. But this gives you insight into how digital oil field can be brought to reality by the oil field service providers themselves. We'll come back to the subject during question and answer. For the time being, let me invite Shaji, who's worked in Wipro and has extensive experience in the energy and utilities field. He's going to talk to us about digitalization of the technology in the downstream sector now. Shaji?
Thank you, Deepak. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
I'm sorry that I have some Murphy's Law glitch with my video. My camera is not coming on, but I'm requesting Suryadeep if he can just pull up the slide. And while he does that, specifically thanks to the Chamber of Commerce for inviting me on this panel. Thank you, Deepak, for moderating this session. Suryadeep, can you bring up those slides?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll just start your slide.
Thank you. I just have a couple of slides, and I'm not representing an organization here. I've been, last 10 years, I've worked across both at IBM and Wipro, leading some of their initiatives, both digital as well as standard solutions, both from a consulting as well as solutions delivering point. And the experience of having worked across multiple organizations globally as well as India, leveraging our incubation centers. I had the privilege to host a number of Indian oil companies at our innovation centers in Wipro's, Bangalore offices. And I just pulled together some sort of, thoughts around how it is. Technologies have been covered in detail, both by Hexagon as well as SAP and others. Suryadeep, the next slide. So yes. I just pulled together some thoughts about how I'm going to talk through. So using this experience of mine, I'm going to talk through about 2-3 things. One is, there are so many different technology jargon and technology elements that you would be hearing as we talk through about digitalization. Some of this has been in existence for over 15-20 years, without doubt. And some of this is about the next evolution of those technologies, the maturity of some of them to be able to generate excitement as well as create new data and new insights because of the advancement of the technology. So in terms of some of these, we've already covered them, and I'm going to try and give more examples focused on downstream. All these areas you've heard through the day, in the morning and through others, in terms of how it is. But I've sort of put this around, elements that I think are making some of the biggest impacts in it. The resource-intensive industries like ours have tended to be very localized, very protective of where you are operating from. And COVID-19 has sort of demonstrated to us with an urgency that it may make more sense for you to be sort of reaching out globally and reaching out beyond your borders or your territories to take help in. The IT industry per se from India has always been doing this. We've been working remotely with organizations globally. Exxon, Shell, BP, Chevron, almost all the global organizations have leveraged Indian companies to sort of remotely help working on it. But COVID-19 has brought to the forefront the opportunity that this is feasible and you can do this. Of course, there are elements of cybersecurity and other things that you need to very closely manage. But having said that, it is possible and it is important, and therefore accelerating this whole focus on digital technology. Now, one of the clear drivers to make that happen is the cloud. In terms of, yes, internet availability ensured you could do something remote, but now that you can have the whole the bandwidth as well as the storage capacity to be kept in accessible to you from anywhere, enables you to use it. And we have heard of examples of how that is being used, whether that is in project management, as in Hexagon's solution, or in SAP solutions, as well as what we heard from both ONGC and Kane as they are using. So cloud's been a big element to make this change happen and increasingly make things a very different environment from what it was before. The other element is around the whole aspect about data and data platforms. Now, and I just loosely called it platforms. Typically, what's been happening is that when you've not had the need to be able to analyze data at the edge or at the moment it is generated, where you could take it in, store it, and then look at it, next week or next month. There has been that is a combination of the fact that there didn't exist technology that could get you that, as well as the human capacity to be able to say, let me look at it, plus the third part of it, that it wasn't really needed for you to attack data at such speed in the past. Now with this ability, technology is now moved to a place where you can bring in data and you can take data from multiple groups or divisions or assets and bring them together to be able to assess it. So typically what's happening is that earlier you had an application, a computer application that had a database, and that database would only talk to that application. And if you wanted some data for some other division or group, you couldn't, and naturally then reflected the division of the organization to be siloed, and the data was siloed. Increasingly today, you're able to bring that together and therefore create what was called collaboration and execution and get integrated data, because you can now, people, whether it's a geophysicist or a seismic interpretation specialist or others, people can look across platforms to identify. This is most stark for us in the consumer industry. We've seen that being done so brilliantly by Amazon and Google, and even today the banks, in using customer data. And in the downstream industry, for us in the oil industry, we sort of gave away customer data, because from a petrol pump or from a lubricants outlet, you really didn't bother about the customer. He came and took it. If he liked your product, he took it and he went, or he had no choice. But increasingly, with alternatives available and with individuals themselves being used to being given focused ideas or focused thoughts about what their experience is, this whole element of data platforms in the downstream sector for retail industry and for lubricants and others has become very critical. How can you get a 360-degree view of a customer? How can you see his preferences? How can you see his strengths? And how can you leverage that to be able to offer him solutions? Leveraging of things like social forums, mobility and mobile solutions. How do you bring this information to him when he comes into fuel? You're able to offer him certain incentives or preferences that now changes his buying pattern at the site, and then suddenly your retail site becomes far more interesting, not only to him but for you, for generating profitability, because you can try other things there, or you can use that location to sell other things. So that has become critical now. As part of, while you can have data platforms and technology to make that happen, how do you ensure that you have the right sensors to collect that information? So increasingly, a lot of companies worldwide have gone about trying to create these newer sensors. Clearly, for brownfield companies, it may involve an additional cost and therefore have to be prioritized in investing in that. but in more greenfield, in projects, you may want to be going with the latest technology so that you can then have a much more effective value proposition to clients, which is what you would have seen with banking industry. Almost entirely today, in parts of the world, there are banks that have no physical assets, are almost entirely on a digital platform, leveraging off many of these technologies. I've also put in there something called character recognition as a broad term to define various other things. And I think in Hexagon, he sort of covered it in terms of saying, how do you take intelligent PNIDs, process information diagrams, instrumentation diagrams? How do you take the data from that diagram and then put it in a more easily accessible solution, data platform in a way? How do you put well-logged data? How do you put equipment data, which may be of multiple types? How do you take video analytics and put that into things? All of this, if you can bring together some of the outputs that you can create in terms of ensuring that you can predict better, you can provide, much better information across people, because otherwise you had to spend a lot of time and effort searching for that information, and very often you didn't get it. So you didn't take any decisions around it. And as I said, all this relates back to saying that a customer in the retail outlet is today who would have bought in the morning maybe shares on the go. He may have done his banking transactions. He would have ordered some food or groceries for his house, and then he comes into the retail outlet and he goes back to the old age, right, to a previous generation. So how do you ensure that that change is also visible is important, and you're seeing a number of companies globally focusing on figuring out how to do that and get back customer data so that they can then bring in some of these elements to bring it on. Clearly, artificial intelligence, the boundaries are yet to be reached. We're just in very early stages, learning and application of algorithms to make this, at some time it sort of scares us into what it will give. But already there are a number of initiatives. Of course, a lot of that has gone around intelligent prediction, both from a consumer data standpoint, as well as from equipment data, from analysis of repairs and maintenance, from an analysis of supply chain, inventory management. How can I predict the right amount of inventory for me? How do I prevent having to store overemphasize on inventory? Those are some of the areas that this is being applied to, and we are seeing that increasingly becoming better and better as it goes forward. There are a number of startup companies as well as others that have got into this. In the refinery industry, there's a famous case of an Indian oil company having got rid of all their scaffolding costs in a great manner in their turnarounds by just utilizing drones, and the ability of the drones to actually land on hard to get assets and then figure out what is needed or how much of corrosion has happened in it. Similarly, on pipelines and hard to get pipelines in a petrochemical complex or in it, how do you reach there with the right devices that can help you then predict that potentially erosion is happening, and therefore you can make the change. All this had to be done through a method of intuition, experience, and some data, and therefore could be a factor to increase manual errors. That therefore is now brought down heavily. I just wanted to quickly talk about blockchain. You've heard about it in the ONGC presentation. You heard about it. I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of those initiatives that we did for some European companies in two specific areas. In one of the global oil majors was looking at expanding beyond retail outlets for gas and fuel into electric vehicle charging. So creating electric vehicle charging. Now, what happens is very often when you set up these electric vehicle charging stations, there are potential for getting distributed generation, meaning people who have got solar give it back to the field, give it back to the grid. And so, EV stations have also the opportunity to be able to say that I have space, I have got electricity available, and I have, so how can I share across a group of, let's say, 100 EV stations? tell you, which is the most effective one to go to, and where I can, and even if I don't it, how can I share it? How much do I have it? Can I put two pricing models in place? Now, the moment you have multiple stakeholders in the system and it's all now digital, you need a solution that can be, certify that you're accurate and that what you're saying is true, and therefore a blockchain as a solution. So that was one classic example which has gone live in the world, and potentially we'll see more of those coming forward in the future. Another example is where we had a gas company in the Europe region bringing in gas in in pipelines and in ships into a geography, and then they had to distribute it across with barges and with smaller pipeline systems to the distribution units. Now again, multiple handovers of the product and method. So how do you do online in real time contracts and holding those contracts to an accurate as well as transparency? And that's an example of how blockchain is. I believe that in the retail network space, we may see some of this. In the supply chain space, we'll see a lot more of this, and it makes sense to be able to leverage such technologies. One of the things that we have seen in the retail network area, and I think some of it was covered in the Hexagon presentation, is how do you use GPS as well as GIS solutions to, for example, you want to grow your network. You want to set up a lot of retail outlets today. There are a number of companies in India that are on that track to set up a number of retail outlets. How can you collect more than 80% or 90% of your data sitting in head office from social and other media as well as GPS data of a trading area potential? In a particular location, what's the amount of potential throughput that you can get because of, let's say, seasonality factors of agriculture, of festivals, temples, restaurants, tourist centers, so many other things that data and shows that your particular retail site is potentially a good earner for you. How do you set it all? And what are the type of services that you could offer from that retail outlet? You could do most of that in a retail outlet and just do the validation physically. And those are things that you will see increasingly being used. I'd like to move on to the next slide, Surideep. So as you can see, this is just a few technology areas, but underlying it, there are a lot, and those are then applied as they can be done. For example, in the refinery space, we heard about how increasingly by acquiring new data through new sensors, even in brownfield refineries, where people are committed to saying, let me make my refinery folks a lot more integrated in terms of looking at real-time data. We have had opportunities to work with creating new data acquisition efforts, and thereby getting data that would probably have sat for more than a week or 10 days without somebody looking at it, now having edge devices fitted so that some of those decisions are online. And in this slide, I have tried to cover what are some of the actions we need to take, or what are the actions that we will see being taken by various oil companies, as well as the value that is going to generate. And through the day, you've heard through from various other speakers about this sort of value. And one of the things was about human productivity as well as human employment and better work-life balance. Very quickly, you have seen oil companies adopting that because it's a given. You need worker safety as a primary objective. So a lot of the solutions that we have put together in the last 18 to 24 months is focused on worker safety. And now, of course, COVID's ensuring that remote working is created. Connected worker solutions we've heard about. Those are things that we've actually implemented. In an Indian refinery, we have put together, I was part of an initiative where we implemented a head device that can help supervisors monitor the work that is actually happening. So from permit to work, which is getting very fast integrated, you're also talking about how a junior worker may go out into the field, and if he needs to access, let's say, a standard operating procedure, or if he wants to just take a photograph and transfer that to somebody more senior sitting elsewhere, or an OEM who can tell you, some information. How do you get all that integrated and still meet some of the norms of operating, bandwidth as well as safety within a facility? These technologies are not, taking people away. They're just making humans, do much more meaningful work. I've had the opportunity to spend time in a very old, 75-year-old manufacturing unit in India, and almost all of them, the complaint was, can you ensure, that we work in a much more productive environment than having to come back and then, enter into a database and get things working? Why can't I do it on the go? So each of these actions that I write here on the left are elements that we've got to do to make it happen. And how can you, change that initiative is critical. And design, user experiments, developing things on the way, creating, methods that initiatives, individuals need, senior leadership needs to support youngsters in terms of trying some of these new technologies, so that what is the possibility of the technology and then adopt it. While of course an integrated view needs to be there, and I think that was talked through in the day. Some of these actions will drive this digitalization better, and it will lead to a lot of these things that we've, in my view, fundamentally improve the bottom line of the organization without a doubt, but improve the whole working of an individual, improve people's decisions, and therefore enable growth of organizations much better than it has been in the past. And that I look forward to and hope to see in the future. With that, I'd like to sort of stop and hand it back over to you, Deepak.
Amazing, Shaji. Your experience was reflecting in your speech so much that it is worth all our attendees to actually take action on each of those bullet points that you took when they go back home. Thank you for sharing all that. I would now request Dr. Pokhriyal from UPES to kindly deliver his address. You have about 12 minutes in hand, Dr. Pokhriyal. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. First of all, let me thank Indian Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Anil Razdan, Dr. Soma Mukherjee, and thanks, Deepak, for moderating this session. Today, since this topic of digitization we have been talking, so I am going to present a PhD thesis of one of my students has completed last year on Internet of Things business model for increasing operational efficiency and employee productivity in Indian public sector retail outlet. And so I thought this is, since my name has been put in the downstream, so this is the most appropriate topic. I thought I must select it. So as we all know, the IoT was first coined by Kevin Aston in 1999, and it's said to be the next big transformation and to revolutionize our life. But we have not seen in every sector. Some of the sector this has been implemented. Now the IoT is expected to have a potential economic impact between $2.69 trillion to $6.19 trillion by the year 2025. This is a research work done by Mainka, Chui, and Bogin, and using the other disruptive technology. Now the advances that transform the life, business, and the global economy, it is estimated that would be about 7 trillion connected object by 2025. And the global trend present today, companies need to reevaluate their business strategy, how our IoT can be adopted, This was set by Rick Kong in way back in 2014 and 15 to develop the facilitate and business for sustainable development. I'm not using the PowerPoint presentation because some of the work talking about it is under review by some of the Scopus journal. Therefore, I'm just giving the oral presentation. So what are the advantage or distinct stages that we have it of IoT? One is the sensor which collect the data, which has already been said by previous speakers, and an application that collect the analyze the data for further consolidation and decision making. The third one is to transmission of data so that to help enable decision making server. These are the key thing which it does. Now we have to apply to, as we all know, the benefit would be the cost saving or the improved asset utilization, the efficient process, and improve productivity. So as we know, that word is undergoing a dramatic transformation and rapidly transforming from isolated system to ubiquitous internet-enabled things capable of generating data that can be analyzed to extract the valuable information. So IoT is one of them, and this is a new reality that enrich everyday life with increased business productivity and improved. This was illustrated by Intel in 2014. The fast-growing IoT ecosystem of IP-connected device with the potential to deliver significant business benefit value at trillions of dollars in coming decades across industry. And organization can use IoT to derive considerable cost saving. Now, what is coming back to the Indian downstream sector, and I have taken retail to the extent of last mile connectivity. So IoT has touched many aspects of oil and gas, which has already been explained by the expert right from upstream. And although we expect somebody from the midstream to talk about the use of these technology. And the IoT oil and gas sector can increase the global GDP by 0.79%, that is equivalent to $815 billion a year by 2025 in a research given by O'Neill, Smith, and Noroha. The oil and gas companies can derive significant value by adopting the IoT, and this help the gas company to manage their existing assets, provide valuable information on them, and transform their business. As has been said by a previous speaker, to use this technology, not to use in silo, it has to be the entire value chain. So we have a kind of amalgamation of the IT specialist and the domain knowledge provider in order to facilitate these disruptive technology, which has revolutionized the oil and gas industry. Now, the new normal of lower crude oil price makes these digitalization technique more important, and this is aiding the oil and gas company to manage their supply chain and asset. This is a research paper by Bean and Slaughter with their data they have provided. It has been talked, upstream has been talked, so I'm going to skip that particular area. So Lee has mentioned in his research paper about how this can be used in the upstream sector. And McAvey Erickson also talked about the real-time optimization and higher level of business performance in the oil and gas field equipment in terms of adopting a new technology. And the data security is also an important priority in oil and gas sector. And steps are needed to be built layer of defense in the IoT network environment. This in his research paper, Parents and Hems, they did talk about this. Now, with that background, what is the work we have done it? So in the petrol retail, if you have to increase the efficiency, we have taken a model which is known as Osterwalder business model canvas tool, which talks about people, process, data, and things which are not connected through digital technology in any of the business scenario. So in this case, we have seen it in the Indian petrol retail sector. These were not connected. As per the Osterwalder model, the customer segment, the various classes of consumer having similar attribute. The second is the value proposition, the solution offered to cater the need of respective consumer group, the channel, the mode of communication with respective consumer group to propagate the value, the customer relation, the different modes of engagement used by an organization with the various customer group, the revenue stream, the various level used by an organization to generate revenue from each consumer group, the key resource, the key activity, the different action undertaken by organization to remain competitive, generate revenue, they provide value to the consumer group. The previous speaker has also mentioned about the each company may use their own way in terms of the domain as well as the IoT, which gives the value to the organization. The key partner, different model of engagement with the partners, suppliers, and other stakeholders to provide value to the consumer group. The cost structure, the various costs involved to make the business model operational. Now, the Internet of Things ranked third in the terms of estimated potential economic impact of 12 technology. So as per the Cisco's report, there is a 3.7% increase in consumer demand at retail outlet due to the adoption of IoT. So these are the reasons which clearly indicates that one should tap the opportunity loss that we are having it, and to tap that substantial financial opportunity loss without the adoption of IoT in Indian public sector. So the work has been done on the various literature, the global oil companies, what kind of model they are adopting, and how to quantify that opportunity loss, and to identify the 26 variables which we could able to find out, which contribute to increase in the employee productivity and operational efficiency through IoT. And using the Osterwalder business model canvas tool, which was first published in 2010 and now exclusively used in many industry. This is based on the responses received from the respondent through the 150 survey which we have conducted out in India and abroad. And these 26 identified variable were incorporated in 9 building blocks to come up with the IoT business model for the Indian retail public outlet. This means the variable were compared to an average of all the variable and significant difference. Now, the undefined digital enabling variable, the data is generated on the outcome of semi-structured interview of over 150 global respondents. And the 26 variables which were considered for the study based on the sensor hardware producers tie-ups to set up with service provided for IoT adoption, the mass market, the scalability of IoT adoption, and the market share, the IoT grows market share after the applying in the Indian retail sector. So the expert interviewed, therefore, to validate the data. This was validated through data, and one get the similar result, which has been given by Guest, Bounce, and Johnson for connection of process with people, data, and thing. The important variable, the interrelation among them, the interrelation of people, process, data, and thing. And the interview, the open-ended questions using the Atlas type, and this was decoded. The interview was transformed into the numbers, and the output of the data was compared with IoT business model for Indian public sector retail outlet that has been developed. Necessary corrections were incorporated, and recommendations were provided. Now, in the end, what is the outcome of the work which has been done? So, adoption of IoT at OMC retail outlet. That OMC need to decisively adopt IoT at the retail outlet in a phased manner. First at Tier 1 cities, thereafter Tier 2 cities, and lastly at remote places near villages. Improved refueling experience and the smarter discount offer at convenience store especially for the non-fuel retail item are some of the attributes that IoT can provide to customer at OMC fuel outlet. Mapping a customer before he arrives to the retail outlet can be easily mapped, and his demand can be mapped so that he would know which dispenser he has to go, and he would be ready for that. And also, if he has some non-fuel retail item, can also be placed through using his mobile. The other some factors were data security. Using IoT created vast interconnected network that are prone to cyber attack and hacker. These are the warnings. So the data security is an important aspect of interconnected smart fuel outlet. The logistic part, especially the COVID time, it is the efficiency in the logistic for the last mile connectivity has become most important. So what are the risks there? The vehicle getting connected to the internet are prone to attack due to dependence on the IP networking. And the connected automobile can have access points that are susceptible to electronic manipulation from cyber criminal. And these are the issue which are a concern has to be addressed before they implement the adoption of IT at various retail sector in the phased manner of Tier 1, Tier 2, and the smaller cities. And the OMC need to ensure that the customer data is protected and the robust security mechanism is in place to protect customer data. And the network data center and the server hosting IoT data should be proactive, monitored, and measured, taken to protect the infrastructure system for malware attack and the software bugs. The online connected for inventory, the previous speaker, Mr. Shaji, has mentioned about the online internet, the inventory, how that can be anticipated. Some of the private oil company in India have started using it from last 3 years, but it is a high time for a public sector, all the public sector companies to use it, especially the area where they are using the swap model, so they can have an integrated approach on that. Therefore, the increased collaboration between OMC and application service provider is another thing which has come out prominently in the research that we have carried out. And the tie-ups with the insurance company. OMC can tie up with the insurance company for selling usage-based vehicle insurance policy at their fuel outlet. in order to improve their revenue generation. And the sensor incorporated in the connected vehicle can track the vehicle's mileage apart from driver behavior and driving style. These can be leveraged by the respective insurance company at the oil outlet to sell the mileage and use based policy and in usage based policy, thus opening up the new revenue stream for public sector fuel retailer. In usage based insurance policy, rash drivers can charge more than safe driver. And the tie-up with mobile digital wallet and credit card provider, which has been done in oil company, but in a quite in silos. The other thing is the customer feedback, which is many research has shown that, especially in the Indian scenario, that feedback isn't good. Especially a lot of investment has taken place in the Indian infrastructure on the road, and the bumpy road are in and around these ROs take a lot of time. So that is the major factor which has come out in the research. And looking at the pumps which can have ATM, luxury, bathroom, car, washing style, repair, which most of them have already made it. But here is the difference between the planning and the what on the field, which we find a big gap on that. The user smart. Yes, please. I have
quick time.
I have one more minute. Is it okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So the last one is the automation and the innovation that can be used, and the most important is the personalized customer experience that they have it. And it has already been said by the previous speaker, the hosting of the IoT data on the cloud. And these are some of the, out of 26, some of the factors which have dominated in order to improve the efficiency and the customer satisfaction in Indian retail downstream sector. So thank you, Deepak, for, I hope I have not short the time of given 15 minutes to you. Thanks a lot for listening to it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pokhriyal. This seems to be quite a wide spectrum of subjects discussed in your study. It may be good to provide the link to these reports of the study that your students have conducted for the benefit of audience. There were some very interesting conclusions that were made, and the industry would like to benefit from it. Thank you all panelists for contributing to the views that have come across in this ICC platform. You have brought across various technology solutions. You also have given your points of view of how the industry can digitalize for its benefit. I'll take a couple of minutes to conclude with a very important study PwC conducted last 2 months back. That report is published for digitalization of oil and gas industry and has been reported in media quite a lot. Some of the important conclusions of that study came out was that if technology weren't there, the oil and gas industry wouldn't have been here. So a significant penetration of digitalization into oil and gas industry has taken place. It has also made a mark in cost reduction. For example, just in lifting costs since 2013 to 2016, there was a 46% reduction in a set of large companies in the higher echelons. There was a 60% reduction in finding cost between 2014 and 2017, the chart in front of me. And this was a good news, but not so good was the news that this set of companies had not managed to get the returns on their investments. In fact, it went down in the period between 15, 16, 17, and 18. And the total ROAC percentages dipped significantly, although in 18, it's resurrected quite a lot. So what's coming out for especially the upstream industry is that digitalization is important to keep the costs down in the unpredictable future for the sector. Another very important, interesting observation that came out of our study was that in the utilities industry, the digital champion, digital innovator, digital follower, and digital novice, the 4 levels of digital maturity, were spread quite thinly towards the digital champion, which means the embracing of digitalization in utility industry was relatively low. Oil and gas was better off. There were 7% of companies that we surveyed were probably classified in digital champions, whereas 35% were in digital novice, the others were in between. But the chemical industry is far more digitalized, in which there were 16% of digital champions, 25 and 33% of digital innovators and followers, and little less than 20% in digital novice. So there is a grading clearly between the sectors with respect to digitalization, and oil and gas industry has little more distance to cover still. And the last observation, which is worth bringing out here, is that in the digital technology implementation in oil and gas sector, if you see from a technology standpoint, MES was the topmost penetration in the oil and gas sector. Cloud computing was the next. Energy analytics was the next. Connectivity and IoT was the next. And machine learning was the 5th one in the rank of its penetration. The rest of technologies like robotics, track and trace, AI, digital twin, blockchain, 3D printing, AR, VR haven't penetrated as much in the sector as it should have, or as the top 5 have. On the other side, if you see the digital technology implementation in oil and gas sector by application, then there are a lot of applications which have been absorbed using technological applications like predictive maintenance, as was presented in today's session, the digital process optimization, integrated planning, smart filling, order management, and so on. This is all global oil and gas industry. But noteworthy, and the good news that came out was that the digital implementation has been also prioritized in areas like smart energy, transportation risk management, emission management. And it's such a good news that technology is being deployed in areas where we have a sustainability agenda in oil and gas sector. So with that, I would like to conclude the observations that were found in our survey. I'll hand over back to Dr. Anil Rajdan and the organizers. Thank you so very much. Panelists, compliments for amazing presentations that you made. Over to you, Dr. Rajdan.
Thank you, Deepak. I think it's been a very outstanding session of a very high technical quality. And I think the presenters have virtually presented cutting edge technologies in the area. But I would say that the oil and gas sector has its limitations in India today. And we should be looking at ways to go and implement these successes and these tools in other areas which are more relevant to India in the future. Though I think cost cutting and more efficient management will be the key to survival in the oil and gas sector, because the way prices have fallen, the volatility, which only means that you have to be efficient, otherwise you perform or you perish. That is, I think, been the motto. But I would say that your learning here in this sector gives you the opportunity to bring about efficiency, better management, better distribution, and a larger overview of the operations and whatever is happening, plus the willingness to leap ahead into the next level of knowledge across the spectrum of Indian economy. Now, a large audience today is from the eastern sector. And I think mining, and particularly the government is talking of coal to gas, coal gasification. Now, these are areas where I think the oil and gas industry has to quickly start looking into. And that is where probably is going to be an interface with the chemical industry. And I think we should be looking hard at those areas. Plus, and I think being a developing country, I hinted at that point in the very beginning that I'll be blunt about it. We have two Indias. One is India, the other is Bharat. The voter lies in Bharat. And I think we've got to see that Bharat becomes more efficient, more intelligent in its operations, and more economical. Productivity of the average Indian has to improve. And we've got to show them by example that by improving productivity, how we've done, how we managed to survive the crises in the oil and gas sector. These are learnings which should not go waste, and it's a mindset that we have to bring into all project management, which has been a huge area of disappointment in our country. So many road building projects, so many umpteen construction projects lying scattered. The finances, the aspect of it, that what is the financial overburden that is building on you moment you delay. So these kinds of consciousness, which I think the front-end industries, and we had representations from today from Schlumberger, from Wipro, and I think a very fascinating one in the very beginning from Hexagon, which is an eye that is watching. It's the eye of Brahma which is watching. And I think we should see that if this eye can go into improvement of operations and how everybody who's a citizen of this country, at whatever level of skill development he is, he can utilize these principles and move to a better economy. Business managers are very nimble-footed. They will go wherever money is. They are not married. It's not an Indian marriage that they will stay stuck to a particular business. But I think the principles of conducting business and the ways of improving efficiency, ways of utilizing technology, and your ability to see everything across the globe sitting at a local location is, I think, a great learning from today. I have certainly gained tremendously, and I'm sure whoever has listened to this entire program has gained tremendously. And I think, Deepak, you need to be congratulated for bringing together such an excellent team of people. And we thank everybody starting from GAIL, ONGC, two companies where I have been on the board of directors, and I know that they were always forward-looking, and they should be the standard bearers. We have Vedanta Cairn, which is again an example of how in adverse situations, getting oil, which is sticky oil, in Rajasthan into profitability and virtually giving HPCL the opportunity to set up that refinery there. And I remember the board had gone and met there, and we tried to see how we can get the best deal out of HPCL, whereas Rajasthan was trying to get the best deal. But all this will depend on efficient execution. And I think we've got a huge learning today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Soma, for having put this all together. Big shabash to you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you to all the panelists, to the to all the delegates who have participated in today's program. Or you have had a extra learning experience from this. So, we look forward to having you in our next session. And have a very nice day.